Good afternoon. Welcome to the Escambia County Tourist Development Council Budget Workshop. I'm David Baer. I am the chairman. And at this time, I'll ask Philip, was this meeting properly advertised?
Mr. Chairman, this meeting was properly advertised on the 12th of June.
Great. Will you please call the roll?
Sure. Matish Patel. Here. James Reeves. Ashley Hoffberger.
Here.
Shirley Cronley.
Here.
David Baer.
Here.
Brad Mullinex.
Here.
Charles Baer.
Here.
Jennifer Brayer.
Here.
Jason Nicholson.
Here.
All right. We do have a quorum, and please let the record reflect Mr. Reeves is now here also. Thank you. All right. First item on the agenda is public forum. I have a couple of forms of folks signed up to speak. First, I will call on Ray Palmer, Pensacola Sports. Yeah, if anybody would like to speak for the budget workshop, please fill out a form and get it to Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. So I've been made aware of an opportunity. I'll give you a little bit of background story. And what I'm looking for today is possibly a little guidance on what y'all would like to see us do, if anything, of an opportunity that's come up. In the middle of the Sun Belt Conference Basketball Championships this year, the first night, we learned from Van Wagner, who is the organization that sells sponsorships for the Sun Belt Conference across their footprint, that Hercules Tires, which had been their longtime sponsor and title sponsor of their championships, was exiting that sponsorship. That sponsorship is now available to us. It's available to anybody that wants to write a check for it. So it's an opportunity for us to be either title. There are a couple opportunities, actually. There's a title sponsorships that's available. There's also a presenting sponsorship that's available. This is not an event. This is something quite different. It's a media buy. I don't have the expertise by any stretch to determine and vet this, to determine the value, or to negotiate it with this organization. But we do have Showcase, who has all of that skill set. And so what I'm asking for you, for this organization, is to give me some guidance of whether y'all would like to see us. I'm going to tell you, and to not disclose too much, it's in the couple $100,000 range, very much in line with many of the annually, and they are looking for a multi-year deal for title sponsorships of basketball and of their football championships. Again, This doesn't bring us the football championships, although we did just give $2 million to UWF to improve a stadium, and their commissioner loves neutral site venues. Not making any promises, but it sure would get us in good light with this organization if they ever wanted a neutral site, and the commissioner loves neutral site events. So I'm just looking for y'all's thoughts, because I don't want to waste my time, your time, Showcase's time, or the organization, anybody's time. If you go, Ray, we're not interested in a major media buy. We've proven that the positive points are we know the Sun Belt Conference is our footprint of tourism. No doubt about that. And the schools, we know they love coming here. They've showed that with Sun Belt Conference basketball. This would just enhance our opportunity to be in their markets virtually year-round.
Thank you, Ray. Any comments, questions?
I know I'm throwing you something you didn't expect,
I'm not
but
sure
I
if that
also
was a
know they're
comment or a
actively.
question.
I know they're actively trying to sell it. I don't know how.
Okay.
But I was in Destin with the conference at their spring meetings a couple of weeks ago, and it came up. I was like, oh, let me ask.
Ray, have you had any communication or talk with anybody from Showcase about what they think about this, or is this so new?
I did have a conversation, obviously, a little bit with Dickie to see
Okay.
if he was aware of it. But there's a lot, Shirley, and I mean, the presentation the proposal that I got from them had no detail. And so there's a lot of digging of what are we really going to get? How much pre-event publicity do we get? We know that in the case of the basketball court, Hercules was on everything from the things to the court to the kickboards to the behind the goals, and a lot of that. After the first night, we went and literally pulled the Hercules logo off of the court, and some we couldn't get rid of. But all of that is to be negotiated and presented. So it's very new and very raw on what is it. And so then we have to go vet it and put a value to that from a professional marketing organization like a Showcase. It says, well, that's worth $2. That's worth $20,000. That's worth $1 million.
And how many sports do they participate in? I mean, I'm sure there's soccer, volleyball, and the list goes on and on.
The original president, and it's all negotiable, but I don't think we want the baseball one. I don't think we want the event, but they host. They've got everything from tennis to volleyball to, cross country, and a lot of these are in our backyard. But the original proposal that I was sent was for basketball and football, the two big ones. And we're not negotiating with the Sun Belt. We're negotiating with a third party. The way these things work is this third party goes in and they buy the rights to represent these mid-sized college conferences across their footprint. They don't get the individual schools, but across their footprint for their various championships. They give you $100, and then they go resell and break that all up and hope they make more than the $100 they paid you. It's a really interesting model.
Yes, Councilwoman?
Thank you. You said you'd have to do a multi-year contract.
That's what they want. Yes, ma'am.
Would you pay that up front? Would that be paid yearly? Do you have any idea?
I'm sure it's paid annually, and that's all negotiable as well. It's just like we just signed a 5-year contract with the conference to keep hosting the championships, and that's an annual payment. So all of that is, I'm sure, negotiable. Can you negotiate it down to pay up front? Who knows? I don't know.
Do you think that sponsorship would decrease your costs for some of the other stuff because now you're getting the advertising that way?
No. I think they are. This is a media buy. We have an event buy. Now, going forward, maybe does it help us, but it's not going to help us with our existing contract with what we have with Sunbelt, because this is with a different third party. It's just tied to an organization that we're connected to at the hip for the next 5 years.
And if you decide to go with this, is this an ask that you're going to do above what you're asking here?
I'm not asking for anything right
Okay,
here.
you're just-
Yeah,
you're
I
just
think
looking for guidance. Yeah.
ultimately, yes, we would come back and say, yes, this Tourist Development Council would like you or Visit, because they're probably better at media, for us or somebody to manage this contract and make sure we get everything we're supposed to get at the football site, at the basketball site, and anything else that we can negotiate. It does come with TV packages. I know a little bit of it, just enough to really be dangerous, honestly, at this point.
And so we don't know at this point whether the advertisement would be Visit Pensacola,
Oh, it would 100% be Pensacola.
just Pensacola.
Well, it would be whatever we decide it to be, would not be 100%, not be Pensacola sports. I never market Pensacola sports to outside. I only visit Pensacola the way to beach.
Okay. It is very interesting. I mean, I think that it's worth knowing about, right?
Jason?
Ray, I think that's an interesting idea, but we only have enough information to just, get a tantalizing taste of the idea. I think it's certainly worth fleshing out the greater details. It's a media buy, so we need to know reach, impressions. What's the expected return? How long is it going to last? What are some comps that we might realize from the sponsorship, such as, swinging a tournament our way or something else? Does it tap into our key feeder markets? Are there some emerging markets that it might stimulate to produce additional transient tourism? So I think it's a neat idea. Certainly Sunbelt basketball has been good to us, and Sunbelt Conference is right in our backyard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Visit Pensacola actually had a sponsorship at one point, correct?
SEC.
SEC, and it'd be interesting to know how that worked out whenever you come back with the details of SBC.
Okay. And that's really what I'm looking for is, it's just a little, I know you don't know enough. I don't know enough, but I didn't even want to start without letting y'all know that this opportunity's out there. And if you're interested, then I'll push it along, now, because it's not going to be out there forever. They're going to sell it. So if we are interested, let's get our name in the hat.
Yeah, well, I don't think we know if we're interested or not until we have more information. I certainly don't know.
I think we're interested in finding out more information.
That's really all I want to know, unless somebody goes, no,
All right.
not interested, no way, bad idea.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. All right, next speaker is Terry Hutchinson. Captain Hutchinson, welcome. Special welcome. I don't think you've been to one of our meetings before, and we are really proud to have you here in Pensacola, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reeves, nice to see you, sir, again. Ashley and Shirley, it was nice to meet you all earlier. So thank you to everybody here for your time. As the chairman rightfully pointed out, American Magic has been here since really the fall of 2018. And so the opportunity to stand here and tell you a little bit about what we're doing is greatly appreciated. Through the evolution of our team and through our America's Cup program, we've come to find Pensacola, really our home as a team and as a newly resident at the end of Intendencia Street. I'm proud to have that now on my driver's license. So it's from a team perspective, Pensacola has been an incredible community to step into. We had different options in the state of Florida that we researched and in other parts of the country that we researched, and Pensacola was not very well known for its sailing at the time. What we came to find is that the natural amphitheater of Pensacola Bay is an incredible place to go sailing. It's an incredible place for us to develop our America's Cup boat, our team, our platform. And as we navigate through AC 38 and the evolution of what may or may not happen, the exciting part about what we have here is really we're just scratching the surface, not only of the development of our manufacturing facility, but the development of racing and sailing inside the bay here. We're fortunate to have developed a very good working relationship with the Pensacola Yacht Club, and they've been incredibly generous to us as a team in bringing us into their facility. For those who don't have experience at going around the world and seeing different yacht clubs and different sailing venues around the world, I can assure you that PYC is very unique. It has a great open space. It has a good launching facility, and the best thing it has going for it is the bay. When you go to areas down in South Florida, you go over to Davis Island, you go to Coconut Grove, they're good sailing venues, but they're very crowded, and they're very difficult to access, and they're very expensive. And not only has PYC been good, but the city and how they've helped us through the evolution of our base and of the events that we're bringing here has been exceptional. As a team, American Magic was incredibly grateful to TDC for the opportunity to put Pensacola, Florida on our sails in Barcelona at AC 37. It was a great representation of our home, and equally as important as the flag at the top of the mast. So thank you all for that, because it was, when you go and you see, some of the competitors that we're up against, some of the true nationalism out of the Defender, out of Team New Zealand, it was definitely a proud moment for us to have that on our sails and to have that opportunity. So thank you all for that. Today, I'm not really here to ask for anything per se, but really to update the council here of what we're doing over the course of the next 12 months and what we've done in the past. You may or may not be aware that we held 2 GL52 regattas here in the spring, and it was more of a pilot to see how things were going to go for not only the logistical side of it, but the organizational side, the sailing side. And Pensacola delivered to the nth degree. And we had 4 days of racing in each series. So a combination total, we had 12 days between the training and the racing, and teams coming in the early part of the year where the sailing conditions were champagne. I mean, it was about as perfect as it possibly could be. A little bit about the fleet itself and the owners. When, in essence, we have to sell something. We have to sell these owners to pack up their boats, and we have to sell them to bring them to Pensacola or wherever the venue is. And each one of these teams travel with 20 team members on their team. The boats are 52 feet, and they come with a reasonably sized entourage. On average, the spend per event was $200K per boat per team over the course, and we had 6 teams. So I know you all can do that math. And as we go forward into the end of this year and the beginning of next year, we plan on 3 more events here with 2 more teams. It's going to get to a spot where we're going to run out of space, I think. That we're going to have to cap it probably at 10 teams because it's just going to get to be too much. And that exclusivity is okay. I mean, we're positioning the venue itself as a destination venue, not only for the sailors, but for the families and for the support staff that come. And it's impressive to see from a sailing side how quickly the sailors jumped into what we were doing and how they were so excited by truly a new venue to come and race and come and learn. And the features of Pensacola Bay make it very difficult. It's a hard place to race. Our owners on average, they're high net worth individuals. The average owner owns 3 boats and either comes here private or in a charter, not commercial. So it's great to have that airport, but that's the type of people that we're dealing with, and the people that they bring are investing. Our numbers reflect sailors, time, going to the grocery stores, and they're based out of the boat that we raced on. We rented out the Oyster Bay Boutique Hotel for the better part of a month. And, so they reflect what we have and really doing the survey within the fleet. But they don't cover the ancillary purchases where people are going downtown to purchase art or to, basically go to the bar and have a rum. And it's exciting to see that evolution of how the sailors and how the owners really are embracing what we're developing here. through, again, our partnership with the Pensacola Yacht Club and working with them, we're working on developing another 6 regatta circuit that will be in a smaller boat. And we're not across the finish line yet because there's also some manufacturing discussion in there for our American Magic Services. But what you can see is the momentum that we're building here, even though there's competition in Florida for these regattas. People are excited to come to Pensacola. In the coming months, I'm certain I'm going to come back before you to ask for support for these 3 regattas coming up. But I wanted to at least update you and, again, thank you for the support that everybody gave to American Magic and the America's Cup, and to field any questions that you might have about where we are, where we're headed, and how we expect to get there. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Terry.
A little bit long-winded, but thank you.
Thank you. Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir, for your comments. I'd spoken with the mayor a little bit about American Magic, the GL52, the regattas, and, we're presented here today with a couple items we're considering. And, I know that you'll probably want to come back to us and ask us for some support, and you mentioned that. And I'm wondering, do you have a relationship, or what kind of relationship do you have with the group that's doing the foiling?
No, we don't have a relationship. When you take a step back, what is happening there is exactly what we thought. When you contemplate the vision and what can we actually do to help build another venue, a quality venue for sailing inside the United States, what's happening there is what we anticipated and what we thought. How it goes about, I'm not necessarily a fan of, but in the same breath, our approach is that we'd rather underpromise and overdeliver, so to speak, and be conservative on our estimates. And I think when we come before you to do that, we'll present what we know are facts. We're not going to, sugarcoat or elaborate anything beyond what we know, because we respect the work that you all have to do and that we're all accountable. And so we want to make sure that our accountability to you is conservative as possible.
And I appreciate that. And what you'll see in a few minutes, if you stick around, I'm not encouraging you to, is us seeking some facts.
Yeah.
Because there are some facts missing in some of the things that we have here.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate the fact that you will come to us with data on, what you think we should fund and why, and actual numbers. And you mentioned working with Pensacola Yacht Club as well. They're asking us for some funding. And I'm wondering, is that related to what you've talked about expanding some of the regattas, or is that completely separate?
No, sir, it's separate.
Okay.
And in fact, the GL52s, a lot of that operation happened outside of the port. We did, because of the size of the boat and because of the crane facilities and how it was set up downtown at Jocko's. It was really, from a sailor perspective, it was very cool because it was engaging with the community. It got everybody downtown. But the GL52, it doesn't necessarily fit over at PYC. The further events that we were talking about, and in the promotion that we're trying to encourage other classes to come to the city and to come to PYC, you can see, it's an incredible facility, but you can also see the need to work on some of the infrastructure, if for no other reason, to make it easier to sell and easier to accommodate.
Okay. And just one further thing, I know that we're working closely with you all. We're partnering with you. The mayor's working closely. The board is working with you. And what we haven't seen in some of the other things I've already mentioned is good coordination before you do something. And so I know that you'll stick to that and make sure that the mayor, the board is informed in how we can help and how we can support you.
Yes, well, thank you for that. And that's we've gone from being a guest inside the community, and we've established we've established our Pensacola and really the Bay as our home base for our America's Cup team. But we're working pretty hard to be as good a stewards as we possibly can, not only of our sport, but when we go out and we promote Pensacola, that whatever we come back with is a viable, good solution for both the sailing side and for the city side.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Charles. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Brad?
Sir, thank you for coming to Pensacola. You know, I've been following it, and it's really brought a unique energy to Pensacola with the international competition. And I know you've opened a lot up to the public with different types of resources, and I think it's really been great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for all the stuff that you're doing. Obviously, not just the excitement around sailing that has this ripple effect of the, foiling week and the other interest in the community, but the economic impact that you're making on the community, bringing 150 high-wage jobs, manufacturing opportunities, et cetera, just to continue to expand the programs and the types of events that you were talking about earlier, the regattas, just to bring more attention to Pensacola, more economic impact through tourism and job creation. So thank you very much for all of your team, the owners, everything you guys are doing here.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
for
Chairman.
selecting Pensacola.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Yep, thank you. All right, those are the only two speakers who signed up for this meeting. So we will move on to status of funds available. Stephen Hall, or Jeremy, sorry. Come on down. And FYI, I have this item on both agendas, this and the meeting, next meeting. Unless everybody wants to hear it twice, I told them they only have to do it once. Thank you.
Afternoon, council members. Jeremy Paglegan, Senior Budget Analyst with the Escambia County Budget Office. I'm here today to present the status of the TDT funds through May 2025. As always, I believe the clerk's office has already provided you with a detailed breakdown of the expenditures. As of the end of May 2025, FY25 collections, including interest, total $11,393,541. This compares to $11,381,986 in collections through May 2024, reflecting an increase of approximately $11,555 year over year. Interest earnings through May 2025 amount to $858,382 compared to $973,006 for the same period in 2024. To give you a clearer picture, the total collections for FY25 through May represent 55% of the annual TDT revenue budget, which is set at $20.5 million. On the expense side, total expenditures through May 2025 amount to approximately $10.86 million. Finally, the current TDT cash balance stands at $29.88 million through May 2025. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Councilwoman Jennifer?
I just want to have some questions actually before we move into looking at each one of these items, so I don't know when it's best to ask these questions. Now?
Sure.
Okay. So on the eligibility list that we were given, so 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, hold on just a second. Under the, one of them, I can't remember, I can't find it right this second. What it says is that the ask cannot be more than 50% of the yearly budget. So it's eligibility. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm trying to find it.
It was,
Today is
17. Where is it? Page 2, if you look at the very top of that, 1,500 something. Which bullet number is it? On the eligibility criteria, right? And which bullet? How many down?
It's under applicant should, right? Submit a proposed budget where government funding does not exceed 50%. It's under applicant should.
So in the one, that's where it is today, but it was in the eligibility criteria, I thought, in what we had in yesterday's. Here's my question. A great deal of these don't.
Right.
So when we're talking about the budget, so it says that the budget can be just, they can just show the budget towards that one item that they're asking for money for, or what have you. So, okay, so that's the first thing. Is that a hardcore? And what we got the other day, though, I swear it's up there in the eligibility.
I'm waiting on mine to load. Huh? I'm waiting on mine to load so I can see.
Okay, so there's that. So that's the first one. Then I need clarification on, it also says for eligibility that it has to be tax exempt under section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, independent of a financial sponsor. Local affiliates may apply under the 501c3, okay, of the national organization. So when you're talking about something like, Santa Rosa Island Authority, which is not a 501(c)(3), or a 501c3, is that filed under the local affiliate? Like, how does that, so if the criteria is that you must be one, but then some of these are not, I'm just looking for some clarity on this.
Yeah, the Jazz Festival is the same way. It's not a
Exactly.
501c3.
Exactly, so I'm not sure, so we've got both those criteria, that it has to be less than 50% of the budget, and that it has to be filed under that, or that section where it says, or it can file under independent, so I guess we need legal probably on this
Yeah,
to see what it is,
they're not
because
here.
when I'm going through these, that's my question. So there's at least half of these are asking for more than half their budget,
Right.
by a huge amount. So I don't know, I mean, I kind of want to toss them to a side because this criteria clearly stated that we couldn't do that. It says that the Board of County Commissioners can waive it, but not us. That's where I'm falling. I'm curious.
I do not believe it says that you cannot waive that, but ultimately,
It just says the
yes,
board, under the
the-
eligibility, the Board of County Commissioners retain the right to waive the eligibility criteria.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct. So historically, the board gave direction that any applicant for county funds, irregardless is not a word, regardless of the
you.
funding source. So for the folks that are general fund or LOST, or even our waste services fund that some of these are funded from, they are supposed to generate at least 50% through other sources in order to support whatever the function is that is being provided. TDT is more unique in that respect. So what I can tell council is our county attorney's office and my office are reviewing some of these as we've moved forward with TDC policies and various other things. I think our application is in some need of update, as well as our miscellaneous appropriations agreements to clarify and streamline some of the verbiage that we have used. But from my perspective, your concerns should not change whatever you guys want to vote on or decide on or fund. That really would not impact that.
Okay, well, I feel nervous a little bit about that. I'm just going to say that there are people, there were groups in here that were incredibly conscientious about this. So they, I guess I'll call out Pensacola Sports, where they even put in their application, this is only 11% of the budget, so they were paying attention to the rules that we put forth. And if we put these rules out there for organizations and they read it and go, oh, I can't apply because I don't meet it, and then we just go, I'm just saying that I think that from what I'm reading, the Board of County Commissioners can change that, but I feel like we might need to consider to go stick to the 50% that we were told in here was the criteria. Every one of their applications says that was the criteria for them. So anyway, that's a big concern for me. So I just want to get it out there right now that I feel like we still have a bit of confused issues going on here. So if we're telling the public it's one thing, then we're coming in here and going, maybe not, then I'm just not real comfortable with that idea.
Could you give us a list of the ones that didn't meet the criteria, that did not?
Unfortunately, the very first one, they're asking for 75,000, their total, they're asking for 125,000. Their entire budget is 141,000. So that means literally, we fund it. I mean, so, and I understand the criteria, making sure that they're out there reaching for, money elsewhere and stuff, but we have, one of them's asking for 87.75, and they're claiming the budget to be 158. I mean, there's just a number of them. So I don't know if what we do is cut it down to the 50% and let the BOCC overrule that, since it says in this, they're the ones that have the option to overrule the eligibility. I'm some questions here. So I'm putting that out there because I'm telling you that that's been troubling me.
So a couple of years ago, when we started going through and putting in some policies and procedures and stuff for the applications, we had a discussion about the requirement for the 501c3, and I thought we had actually said that it's not a requirement because there's nothing in the law to use tourist development tax only for tax exempt 501c3. So I thought we had gotten rid of that.
It's on there.
I see it. And I don't recall ever having a conversation about the 50% piece of that also. But since the county commission retains the right to waive the eligibility criteria, there's nothing in here that I see that prohibits us from making the recommendation to the county commission to waive those requirements, eligibility criteria. So if there are organizations who do not comply, they're not 501c3s, they don't, their request isn't 50% or less of our request, of their annual budget, we can make the recommendation to fund them at whatever level that we decide to fund them and ask the county commission to waive that criteria requirement if it exceeds it. Just, that's an option for us, instead of saying, let's cut them to 50%, because I think, I don't know what Visit Pensacola's budget is, but they get a whole lot of money. I don't imagine it's, meets the 50%.
Who?
Visit Pensacola.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
sure. I
That
could probably-
absolutely does not meet the criteria.
But, and I
mean,
can tell you, I
and-
know for sure it's ACE.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that don't meet the criteria, but it is troublesome to those out there that are looking at this criteria and decided not to apply because they don't meet it.
Right.
So I think that we.
Are you aware of any that have not applied because they didn't?
Well,
meet it?
even, okay, so, even the very first one said that they didn't apply for money elsewhere because the criteria says you can't do that. So if they're taking criteria seriously, eligibility criteria seriously, and that's holding them up from what they're doing, and then we're saying, well, actually, we didn't really mean any of that, I think it's kind of wonky. I apologize, but I do. And wonky is a good word. All right, the only other thing I'm going to just say, in the full realm of things, maybe next year, everything be in the exact same order. Like, people have to turn it in the same order, so if the audit comes first, then the audit comes first. If the checklist comes first, the checklist comes first. But the fact that we were all over the place trying to go through 1,513 pages, which we postponed so we could do, and we did it, but it was, you get going, you go, oh, man, they didn't provide the audit. Well, it's the last on theirs, but it was the first on the other. And I just think that we need to have the checklist, everything on the checklist in order in the package.
So I have asked for a portal for next year. Wes is working, or the county administrator, Wes is working with our IT department. So essentially, they could submit everything on a portal, and it would not let them move forward until they have submitted that document. And then on our end, it would file it in order, almost like file folders on your computer. So I have made that request because 1,300 pages was a lot to read through. I agree.
I was corrected, it's 1,500.
1,513.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now. So, Councilwoman, what would you like us, how would you propose we move forward today?
I want us to move forward, but I think that we might need to put something in there that we approved up to the 50% mark, and then we leave it up to the, unless we don't, we leave it up to the Board of County Commissioners to go the remainder, because then we would at least be adhering by what we told the people we're adhering by. If they want to take it up, let them take it up, right? But I think that we put out an application and a criteria list, and we told them this is it. So I think that that's probably our place, and then let the commissioners do their thing.
Stefan, question, is this application page the general application that you send to all outside agencies regardless of which bucket they're applying?
It is. It is the same application. We've made some specific tweaks to the tourist development application that are unique to the tourist development tax application. But again, previously, my board had made this decision. And again, a lot of this stuff is still an evolution in the process. So, but I do hear what the councilwoman is saying, and we can certainly make those changes going forward.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments, or do you guys want to get into the actual proposed budget?
I do like the idea just of transparency, like approving up to the halfway mark and then making the recommendation that the board waives it. That way it's fair for everybody and it's transparent for the board too. Just as somebody that's going to have to vote on this on the backside as well. I don't know if everybody else feels that way.
So I guess my question to that is, are we only proposing to fund up to 50% of their annual budget today, ask the county commission to waive those criteria, and then we come back for another budget workshop? Or do you want to go ahead and fund, fully fund based on whatever we propose, ask them to waive, and we've already done the work, so we don't have to come back again?
The second option,
Okay.
yes. And unless you want to do this again, I don't want to do this again.
So for the council, I do need to know how much we're going to fund each of these partners, if you will, so that, my job is to have a balanced budget. And so for the county, which does include tourist development tax, so ultimately, whatever we're going to fund each of those agencies, so there's their request, and then there's what this council is going to recommend. So I do need to know what the total, not 50% or whatever. So I need to know what is the true recommendation to come from council. And then, of course, we can certainly caveat, with that, but I do need to know that information.
Okay. So my comment that was just confirmed by Stefan was that today we actually recommend, regardless of those criteria that you raised, we make the recommendation for funding however we want to do it. We have their requests, regardless of the 50%, et cetera. We go ahead today, make those recommendations, and then send the message with that recommendation of a total budget to the county commission, request that they override or forgive what's that? Yeah, forgive those criteria. We today make that recommendation for the full budget amount. If the county commission decides not to, then obviously they can cut it to the 50% of their overall operating budget and move forward from that point. But then we will not have to come back and have another budget workshop meeting, because we can just go ahead and recommend the funding. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Last meeting, when we adjourned and postponed to this meeting, there was a recommended or proposed amount that I think you had come up with. And it's not here this time. And I'm just wondering, do we have like an allocation? Is there like a set number we're trying to fit all these into, or are we just kind of whatever, we'll just put it down there and hopefully we'll raise that money? I don't.
So everybody should have this
Yep, I have it.
printed, the spreadsheet. So the center column is the requested
Right.
amount from each one of them that have been transcribed over here. On the right, if you look at the top section, the county is proposing to collect $21 million through the 5 cents, and was recommending doing a fund balance of additional $2,310,000, so that there would be approximately, what's that, $23.3 million of revenue. I guess it's 21 million in revenue and then fund balance transfer. So we're working from that number. And then we have a statutory holdback requirement of 5% of the total collection. That's, if you look at that, you'll see that $1 million, the $1 million, $1,050,000. The negative, that's the 5% holdback that has, in case the county doesn't hit its collection projections, they didn't overspend. And then you move down to the next section, you see the 5th cent. It has been reserved. The county commission has taken action a couple of years ago to reserve those funds, not spend it through the annual appropriation. So those are the dollars there after that portion of the 5% has been withheld. That also has the administrative costs, the 3% removed from it. And so you kind of have this available for funding, $18,396,000. The next section, I went ahead and filled in because these are things that we've already committed. The county commission commits the $1.5 million to the Bay Center operations. The beach mowing is $126,000. The administrative costs at 3% based on the $21 million collection. And then we have agreed to beach renourishment at $1 million a year based on action we took. We were previously reserving $500,000 a year, but when we appropriated to the Island Authority, the additional money we committed to, they were going to take a loan from the county, and we were going to pay that with an additional $500,000 a year until that interest-free loan from the county was exhausted. And so that's the $1 million you see there. And so that is, that section is the $3,256,000. So that comes off of the 18 million. And you can see at the very bottom of the page, you've got
15.14.
the 15.14. So
That's what we have to
that's what
allocate
we
between
have
all
to
these
work.
things.
Correct. And as you can see, the request, that center column, that total,
It's higher, but not by a huge amount.
it's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. It's $1,362,421 over the amount we have to allocate.
Right. Okay.
So at the last meeting, the sheet that I had passed out that had those numbers filled in were just my own personal
Right.
recommendations. I decided to blank those out and just have the conversation, since it's not just my recommendations,
Right.
so that we can have this conversation and everyone else can put in their 2 cents and we can take action as a board.
Okay, so with that in mind, I mean, we got to cut something out, yes?
Correct.
1.362 million.
Go to 50% and we're good.
We're more than good.
Yeah.
So we can do this a number of ways. We can go line by line through these requests. And you have what we adopted in the current fiscal year, and you have what is requested in the next fiscal year. And we can make recommendations. We can fill in those blanks and go on to the next item. We can do this a number of ways. I would suggest we do it that way. It just seems to be easiest, go line by line. I was told that Cheryl was not going to be here at the beginning of this meeting with African American Heritage and asked if we could hold off until she got here. She was traveling from out of state. So we can, if that's okay with everybody, we can skip to the next section. So the next item is the Naval Aviation Museum. That $100,000 request is a historical request they've been asking for, but they've been receiving for about 15, 20, probably 20 years. I think it was originally a 10-year commitment, $100,000 a year. The TDC continued, the county continued to make that appropriation. There was one year they requested that they got $200,000 we appropriated, but I think that was 2020 when we hit COVID, and then they didn't spend the second $100,000 because they were having to close down for anyone outside of DOD. So their request, their $100,000 is the same request they've been asking for and receiving for 20, probably 20 years or more. Anyone wish to change that?
I would move that we actually accept that. Their total budget is $4,340,640.
Yes, it's a fraction.
So weird, right?
100,000.
Yeah, so I recommend that we stick to the 100,000 on that one.
Okay.
Are we taking motions and I'll second that if we're doing that, but I don't know what we're doing in this workshop.
Why don't we go through, if there's nobody that disagrees, then we'll move to the next, and at the end, we'll do a motion to accept. Although we can't, this is a workshop, we're not taking any formal
Right.
action, we're just going to be recommending it to
Okay.
our next meeting, and our next meeting will accept it.
I do have a concern reading through their application. Reading through it, I didn't see, do they charge for the kids that come for the Naval Academy? Do they charge those kids, or is it?
$1,750, isn't it? Isn't that what it said? $1,750 is tuition per child, I believe.
Okay. And then I did read where it said the 100,000 they get from us feeds the students for 4 weeks. And then it said it was 180 students a week for 4 weeks. I wish somebody was here to answer some questions, because I'm wondering why tax dollars are paying for kids that are paying to be at the Naval as a student, and they're already paying. So why is bed tax dollars paying to feed those kids? So that was a little confusing for me, and I know, and they have a very healthy budget. They have plenty of money, so I'm not sure. And every dollar that we take from bed tax dollars that's not used properly to advertise and market Escambia County, it's just hurting more people that are actually using it properly. So I don't agree with, I know the Naval Museum and everything with Navy is great for Pensacola, but just because it's great, I don't think we should give somebody $100,000 to feed kids that are already paying to be fed. So that's my piece on that.
I did the math on it, and it would be an extra $63 per kid if we didn't subsidize it. So I don't think that would prevent any of the families from coming.
And the other thing I saw in that was that a lot of these kids, they're trying to recruit a lot of kids from Escambia County, which is great, but it's not what bed tax dollars are for.
Mr. Chairman, I have two things. Actually, I'd like to ask anybody from Visit Pensacola what our market ADR is, our trailing 12-month market ADR is right now. I want to do some math here, because on the application, it represents that the Flight Academy created 1,100 room nights, no argument with that whatsoever, but I want to apply the math to this to show how much tourism development tax was generated. Not going to wait for that one. The second point that I'd like to make is, if I'm reading the income and expense table accurately, and I think I am, under the current budget year, fiscal year 24-25, net income, defined as revenue minus expense, is sitting right around $2.5 million. I agree with my council member, Mr. Patel, that the Navy is certainly an honorable entity in our community, but it looks like they have plenty of money to fund feeding the kids. With that number, I remember it as being $231. But I know there's a huge report that Darren's looking through right now.
Darren, are you looking for the ADR? Okay, I just want to
So
make sure
if we were to use 231, that means the entity, if we were to use an average daily rate of $231 by 1,111 nights, creates $12,800 in tourism development tax, just on a replenishment basis. Certainly, it's an entity that generates tourism and stays in hotels, and I appreciate that. But on just a replacement basis, it looks like about $13,000. And I would add to that, the Flight Academy is doing pretty well with 2.5 million. Looks like it's about better than a 30%, almost 40% net operating income.
So I believe this is, obviously, they're the foundation manages both the museum and the Flight Academy. And historically, they have used these funds for the museum itself and for marketing the museum. Going back through their application real quick.
I guess I remember when it was originally stood up and the community supported the first 10 years at $100,000 a year. That was really to stand up the Flight Academy and get it off the ground. No pun intended, honestly. But now here we are 15 years into it, and the mission is strong. Their income is great. I think that $100,000 would be better deployed somewhere else.
I think we're still waiting on Darren. We still waiting on you, Darren?
Sorry to put you on the spot, Darren. I should have called.
According to Smith Travel Research, it's actually $142.
142. Thank you.
That's significantly less.
I'm going to see if I can add in vacation rental as well.
So $8,000 in tourism tax creation. And to be fair, that's just hotels. That does not include vacation rentals. That's a different report.
Right.
For transparency, what Darren is reading is a publicly available report called the Smith Travel Research or the Star Global report. And it's a report that creates various competitive sets within a specific market and ranks performance in that market over periods of time.
Star Global.
Yes, STR.
One more thing on the original, what we talked about earlier with the 501c3 and the 50% of the budget. There was something else in there that said that anybody that's asked for government funding after a certain amount of years, every year should be a 5% decrease.
After the first 3.
Does that apply to
And then
everybody?
from then on after that, it has to decrease by 5%, it said. And I didn't have enough information to actually meet that criteria.
Right, so that was another thing with this application and several of the applications that were actually upping their amount instead of lowering their amount. That was another point I had for this one, that they've been coming for more than 10 years.
That's true.
And the amount's not decreasing any.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Reeves.
we're $1,362,421 short,
Yes, sir.
and we appropriating $2,109,000. Of all the
The-
requests, they come
the-
to $2,109,000.
Correct, outside of the unified budget's request, yes. Below that, you see the unified budget.
I just understand, I want to understand how much money we have to cut out of the center section.
Well, out of the bottom 2 sections, we have to cut out 1.362. I don't think we know how much out of one section versus the other. We could very easily do an iteration formula and cut it all out evenly across each one of them based on their request amount. It's math without having to
So
think.
we've got both sections.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
but, I mean, we don't have to allocate all of this. Because what if we have somebody that comes forward in the future, like, for instance, American Magic wanting to do something and they want funding, and we've given to somebody that really doesn't need it? I mean, I tend to agree with my fellow council member down there. At first blush, the 100,000 looks good, it's fine, but I don't think they need it, and I don't think it's the right source. I think that the county wants to give them 100,000, they could do that. They have plenty of money, different places. They could come to the city for some too, I don't know, but probably less than what they'd ask for from the county. But if it's a good faith thing we did for 10 years and they don't really need it, I think there are other organizations that are doing more with less, really, that we can invest this money in. But I don't think we necessarily need to, it would be nice if we got to the amount and we were zeros there, so that we spent it all. But I also want to leave some room potentially if there's something else we don't like in here. I feel like there's a couple here that we don't have any backup on that got pulled already, like the cigar one. That's out, right? Is that still in? 'Cause
We didn't get
we got
anything
no
on it.
backup for that.
It's out.
Okay.
Okay, wait, then also, how about
Summerfest?
Summerfest? We didn't have anything
We've
for
got no backup for
Summerfest.
Summerfest.
It was the Wahoo's cigar, and I'm not even familiar with that one,
Cigar, Wahoos, and Mardi Gras.
and Mardi Gras, with
Okay.
unrevised.
Okay, Mardi Gras.
Summerfest
is
is
not
same as
in-
Jazz
is Summerfest
Fest.
Wahoo's?
I think Summerfest is Jazz Fest.
No, I thought William Banks was Jazz Fest.
That's correct. He is Summerfest. He might have changed the name of his.
Okay, Summerfest is William Banks?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So cigars
So
out.
if y'all are okay, let's stick with the one item and
It's-
decide whether we want to fund it. I understand what you guys are trying to do. Let's cut out, but let's finish this conversation really fast.
Okay, then no, let's not fund it at this time.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone feel differently? All right, so we'll zero out the Naval Aviation Foundation. All right. All right, and I did see Dr. Howard come in. Do you need a moment to breathe, or are you ready? So we skipped you. I can give you a moment, we can come back. All right, so let's move down to Pensacola Chamber fireworks. That used to be funded through, the program was done by, who was it? It was the,
Sertoma.
yeah, Sertoma, thank you. Sertoma, they moved that over to the Pensacola Chamber of Commerce.
Is there anybody here from the chamber? I didn't see Todd.
I didn't see Todd either.
Can I just make some comments then?
Please.
Just some general things. Yeah, I did read all these pages. I guess I didn't read every single page. I didn't read all the audits and everything. But in this one, there were some obvious kind of glaring errors on zeros, but that's not a big deal. The one thing that I think is kind of a big deal, they indicated in the baseline for room nights in their application was 4,300 room nights, but the highest number they had in any of their metrics was 1,300. So I'm not sure which is correct as far as the number of room nights. Just not very good attention to detail. And I kind of wanted to ask somebody why their numbers are so predictable in the goals and metrics, that they went from 12,000 visitors in '23 to 13,024 to 14,025. Is there any way to track this? And then the room nights also go up by 100 each year. But as I said earlier, they show 4,300 as their baseline for room nights, which they'll never reach that. And then they had an increase of 10,000 contractual services. I didn't know what that reflected either. So, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't fund them. I'm just saying there's, in the category of things where I have questions, that was one of the ones I had questions on.
Should we fund them at a lower amount? I mean,
Yes.
we all love fireworks, but if it's 5 minutes shorter, I'm not sure that's going to make a huge impact. So if we can save $10,000, $20,000 and cut the show short.
It was 10,000 less last year, so we could go with that at this point and do the 96,000 instead of the 106.
It was 87,500.
What am I looking at wrong here then?
I thought it was 96.
Last year it was 96 is what was on
Okay,
the information I got.
This does vary from what was in our stuff, I'm just gonna tell you that.
Yeah, their own application, they have to write.
Oh, so they're not in, I just noticed this is not in order. This is, if you're looking at the applications in order, that application, the 87,750 last year was Pensacola Beach Chamber fireworks, not the Pensacola Chamber fireworks. I just noticed that also.
Okay. Then,
I got a question on them too, that, so I know downtown we do fireworks and beach we do fireworks, and we don't have like a New Year's fireworks anymore downtown, but they'd still have it at the beach. Why can't we combine the fireworks and just have them at either or location instead of both locations? And does it make that big of a difference? I feel like, and Jason probably can answer this, 4th of July is busy at the beach regardless of if you do fireworks or no fireworks. I mean, it's nice to have fireworks there. It's also nice to have fireworks downtown, but nothing's really changed business-wise on New Year's Eve in downtown Pensacola without fireworks. Does it make a whole lot of sense to have fireworks 4th of July when the beach is completely sold out? I don't know if it does or not.
yes.
Yes.
We do not want the beach coming to Pensacola for the fireworks, and we don't want to go there. I mean,
But
we
people
need
still do
the-
that.
Both of them are packed.
Folks that want to go to the beach, well, they don't care. They'll go through the traffic, they'll sit through it, they'll come back through the traffic. There's folks that live locally that will do it. And there's folks that, tourists that will say, hey, I'm going to stay on the beach because I want to see the fireworks. But I don't know, financially, does it make that much of a difference? Again, I'm looking at it with the tourist development hat. Does it drive tourism
Okay.
specifically for fireworks? I don't really know if anybody from Louisiana or Texas is going to come to Pensacola Beach because we have fireworks.
Humorously, I know people who live in town, a north side of the city of Pensacola, who rent places out downtown for the night of the 4th of July so they can be there during it. And those rooms are hard to come by on the 4th of July. So, I mean, I would argue that we are using them, but
I
you
would
guys
argue-
are the hoteliers.
I would add, I think people are coming to Pensacola, and the reason we're booked is because of the amenities, the events, the quality of life, all of those different things. And so I would continue supporting having fireworks at both downtown Pensacola and at the beach. The ones that we've supported at the beach, I think that's for two different, that's both New Year's and 4th of July. It's not
That's right.
just,
So why don't we start at the bottom of the list? Because that's where the real money is. You only got 2 million up at the top, I mean, nickel and diming the top. And all you have to do is cut the new request out of the bottom section and you've almost got all the money. I'm just suggesting,
right.
because we can spend all afternoon up to the $2 million section.
We moved the meeting to 2 o'clock so we could do that.
Well, I know you love to meet.
Mr. Chairman, I'm good with 96,000.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could speak to Mr. Patel's point, I get what you're saying. I think that the fireworks enhances the quality of our place. If someone's sitting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they're deciding if they want to watch fireworks in Baton Rouge, or get in a car and drive over and stay in Pensacola or Pensacola Beach, I'll take that, then I think that is a shifting strategy where we can get somebody to come into our town. My family also rents rooms to watch the fireworks, candidly. I will say, however, or in addition, on the expense table, it looks like the Pensacola Chamber has forecasted a net income of $4,000. So I would recommend an allocation for the fireworks of $102,000 versus $106.
How much?
There was,
102.
there was a recommendation for 96 for level funding from last year. Are you
Oh.
suggesting the
Well, then
102
then I would, I take that back. Thank you.
rather than 96?
Yeah, we're good.
Is everybody okay with the 96? Anybody
Yes.
opposed? All right.
How much more do we have to come up with after that 4?
After those two?
We saved 110,000 so far.
Keep on going, Chair.
1,251,000.
Juneteenth doesn't have
Okay.
backup either. Were they cut also?
Yes.
Juneteenth was cut?
Yes.
Okay.
correct? Juneteenth? They withdrew their request, or it's a placeholder is what you said? It's a placeholder.
So it could be, whoever wants to do something, some type of event.
Okay, so, hold on, we have a couple of years ago, when we created restricted funds, one of those is a special events fund. So if we didn't put that placeholder there, there are funds in that account that we could then use to support something that comes up. We're good? So we can zero out the Juneteenth.
50,000, that's it, though.
Yes.
Not very big.
That Juneteenth. And since we're here and we're not talking about any specific items, cigar weekend is zeroed out. Did somebody also say that Mardi Gras Pensacola was?
Yeah, that one's gone.
It's gone?
Do we want to lose Mardi Gras?
I don't think we want to lose it.
We didn't have
but-
anything here from them.
No, that was an incomplete application. It was in the unrevised applications, which is why it was pulled out.
Do we know what
Thank
they
you.
were missing?
Ma'am?
What were they missing?
I can't recall, honestly. You know that was something?
I believe we were missing their financials primarily.
I don't think I saw Navy Days here either. That one should be gone. That's a zero for this year, right?
And Navy Days is zero. They're zeroed out. They ended up
They
not
withdrew.
getting paid this.
I
they
believe at the
withdrew.
last TDC meeting, they said they were withdrawing their application.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I have a zero.
We're getting there.
And just Councilman Bear, I did want to mention to you, so as one of the questions that I asked of each applicant, to provide or tell us the source data for your metrics, where are you getting this information from? So that was an ancillary question that I had, but we will make sure that that is a question added to the application going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Do we feel like not having Mardi Gras is going to impact the hotel rooms downtown if we don't fund that?
I think that it will impact hotels downtown. I mean, there's a lot of floats that come from out of town. There's a lot of people that come from out of town for that, so I do think that it would impact. I don't know if there's time for them to go to visit Pensacola. I don't think there is time. I know we have our grant committee meetings for Visit Pensacola on the 23rd of this month, the next week, so I don't think they have time to go there either. I know there's been talks about doing it quarterly. At Pensacola Sports, grants are done quarterly, and at Visit Pensacola, I don't think it is. It's done
I don't think they're there yet.
twice a year, so. I don't know if you want to speak on it.
Danny's here. Would you like to hear?
Yeah, Danny, can you come up and explain where we're at? I just don't want to lose a event that we know is putting heads in beds.
Well, so tax returns were not done. Mardi Gras starts January the 4th. Money comes in the end of one year. Next year, we're working on our tax returns. We did get some questions from Stefan's staff, and we turned those in the day of your last meeting. So it wasn't in your package before. It was incomplete when you got your package last time. That's why we were one of the three thrown out. But we gave them all the answers that they had, except for tax returns and our Down St. Germain report, which is the big piece of this, to prove our economic benefit.
Has that all been completed now?
Down St. Germain said any day. I'm saying a week or so. I don't know. And the accountant will get us the tax return shortly. I don't know.
Let's just make sure we've got enough money held back for those kinds of things. Exactly what you were saying.
We need a big
Placeholders.
placeholder, big placeholder.
Yep.
Love placeholders.
All right.
Good?
Okay. Thank you, Danny. All right, but for our budget recommendation, we're going to zero that line out, and we've got the budget.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I think those are all the zeroed out for withdrawals or incompletes, but do you want to go back up to African American Heritage?
Yes.
All right. Now, so before we move forward, we do have members in the audience from some of these organizations. As we get to them? Do you want them to come forward so we can ask questions?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Howard, if you would come forward, please. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I do. This is one of the ones that is taking the request up 50,000, which is pretty significant. And their budget is 141,000, so they're asking for 125,000 out of a budget of 141,000. So this is well over the 50% mark. The 75,000 they were granted last year is at the 50% mark-ish. So I guess I'm looking for why we're going to go that far above, I think, at this point.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Howard on behalf of the African American Heritage Society. Thank you so much for pushing us back on the schedule as I was traveling from out of town.
Yeah, well, welcome.
And if I may immediately
Thank you.
respond to that request, the reason that we've increased it by that amount is that for at least the past 15 years, we've been receiving $40,000 per year from FAPN, the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network, to also support having an intern and at least one part-time employee. And we've become quite accustomed to having that additional help. Plus, they also take care of some of the other expenses that we have as well. We call it FAPN. FAPN is located in Tallahassee. That budget has been funded by the state every year without question. For reasons that I cannot explain, this is the first year that FAPN will not be funded.
Can you tell me, once again, how much were they funding you
It
at?
was $40,000 per year.
Okay.
And, if I may, FAPN was designed to support smaller African American or heritage or cultural museums throughout the state. I mean, literally from Miami all the way up to Jacksonville. It's of course headquartered in Tallahassee and all the way across. And the reason for that is because the history is different, significantly different in all parts of the state. And so there was the feeling that it was really important to have representation by museums in all of those places, including here in particular where we have the most interesting history as well.
Thank you. One more question. How many years have you gotten money from this board?
I believe it's been around 14 years.
Okay.
And we have been in existence since September 12th, 1990, and we will be celebrating our 35th year this year. Well, technically next year, but September.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that also goes into the concern down there that after the third year, it's supposed to decrease by 5% each year if it continues.
Yeah, I don't know where that rule came from. That's never been any rule
I don't
that
either, but it's in
the
every
TDC
one of
has
their
ever-
packets. I don't know where
saw
it came
that.
from either.
I think that might be the combination of the requested, the form for outside agencies to request based on all the different programs that outside agencies could request of the county. But that's never been,
Except it wasn't every one of their criteria.
wait, say that again? It was,
It's on every one of theirs that they turned
Right.
in. That's the criteria that it states.
right, I don't think that's been the form that we've used historically.
Commissioner Hoffberger, so when we get to discuss our budget at the budget workshop, so this is some previous direction that was provided by the board. This actually occurred while I was working at the city. So that's kind of what I've inherited as we came back. And I think we need some clarification on that from the board. So let's get that cleared up, and then we can fix our application with a change of direction from the board.
Absolutely agree. And I think we're also working on individual applications for whatever, so it's a little bit easier for the applicant to understand. So the TDC application would look different than maybe if we were funding something for the homeless community. Perfect. Thank you.
Charles?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. Thank you for being here. I noticed one of our fellow council members is one of your staff members, and I was just kind of wondering how your staff works. You've got 3?
Well, we had 3. We recently have lost one who fell in her home and broke her right ankle and fractured her left foot.
Oh,
So she will not
yikes.
be back for the foreseeable future. So we're down to 2 now.
Okay, because you requested like 30, I think it was 65,000 in salaries, but you only had 3 people, and that was total up to 60,000. So what's the other 5? And now if you only have 2 employees, you're going to hire somebody else?
Well, we'd like to, we need to. And this is also aspirational because we've had many requests from Visit Pensacola to do a more robust job with promoting our Heritage Trail. We created the first African-American Heritage Trail in this area, and there's a significant interest of individuals both within the state, schools and other organizations, as well as outside of the state, to tour the Heritage Trail. We just got a call this past week of over 45 individuals with one family reunion, and then another one asking us to recommend a place that they could have a family reunion with 130 individuals, and both groups wanted to also do the Heritage Trail. The problem that we have with the Heritage Trail, and we have answered the call of Visit Pensacola whenever they have asked us to do it, is that we don't have staff. If someone is out touring groups on the Heritage Trail, then there's no one else in the office. And most of our full-time people don't want to also work on Saturdays. So one of the staff has always been a Saturday person for every Saturday, and then the other staff has been all of the other days. And in the case of some staff, 6 days a week, so.
But you're the only full-time staff member, though, right?
I'm sorry.
You're the only full-time staff member, aren't you?
Technically.
Okay. And final question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So in your application, you say you'd like to secure additional funding and sponsorships of at least $35,000 in the next year, but I don't see that anywhere in your budget or what your expected revenue is. So
In terms of partnerships,
it's secure additional funding and sponsorships of at least $35,000 in the next year is what it says. So I didn't see that reflected anywhere in your budget and what your revenue is. So is that aspirational? I mean, do you have any leads towards that? Because we're dealing with limited dollars here, and if you have the opportunity to bring that kind of money in, we need to decide if we need to offset what we do.
well, it is aspirational because a few years ago, we did more collaborative partnerships at a higher expense with the Heritage, UWF Historic Trust. We co-collaborated exhibits and did a variety of different things also with them. We've also collaborated with organizations outside of the state to bring in programming here that members have expressed interest for. We would like to collaborate also more with some of the other museums that are cultural museums, and we've been discussing how we can coalesce around each other to also support and sort of buttress the cultural history offerings in this area, because this really is an area that has a very unique cultural history, and there's enough of it to be covered by more than just our museum, but some of the other museums have not been around for decades as we have, and so I think collectively we could work better together than continuing to work very independently. And so we've talked with Chappie James, we've talked with some of the other museums about working together more, and that will take funding. Some of the other museums have less funding, and so we expect that we would bear a greater financial expense in those collaborations.
I definitely think partnering is something you need to look at for sure. It's definitely something we look at in these applications. If you have partners, that is always helpful. So, okay, thank you.
At the $125,000, that's 87% of their total budget. At $100,000, it would be 71% of the total budget. If we went with last year's, it would be 53% of the total budget.
So one of the things I just wanted to point out, on the income table that you filled out on your application, we can see that in last fiscal year, we gave you $50,000. We gave you a 50% increase to $75,000 to the current fiscal year. And now you're asking for a 66% increase for next year. And I think that's I understand what you're trying to do and expand the programs and bring in the partnerships. But I think, we made a huge increase in investment in this current year, but we haven't seen that, and I know it takes a little bit of time. But if those are aspirational, I think personally, I'd like to see you go out and get those this year with maybe some level funding from the current year before we do another increase. Because my concern is we do another increase, and then maybe we see less of the outside because we're covering, a lot of the program costs just through our appropriation. So I'd like to see, personally, I'd like to see the level funding from what we've done this year without an increase, since it was already a 50% increase over previous year.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may remind you, we're trying to also make up for the shortfall of the $40,000 from the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network, that for the first time in more than a decade, this will be the first time that we don't have that support. And so a lot of the work that we have done over the years, we've only been able to do it because we had those additional funds. For example, having someone to take care of all of our social media, to do a lot of the marketing, and that's part of what they call it's an internship that's paid via a stipend. That's a part of that grant. And so that's another person who's not listed as an employee for us because it's paid. In the past, it's always been paid by FAPN, and it's a separate application process, and they pay, it's paid out in a different way. And so without, we're not exactly sure that how fast we can immediately make up for the $40,000 loss. That is definite because, as you know, the Florida legislature, I think they're done with the budget. And I actually brought the article. There was an article discussing how this is the first year that FAPN has not been funded since its existence, and no real reasons for it. But it's going to affect all of the heritage museums throughout the state of Florida.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
But the unfortunate thing is we have to balance, we have to look at what the impact of your program is and then tie increases to that in some method. I have a question for staff. So they would not be barred from getting discretionary funds, would they, from the county? Are they, by getting funding through this?
Councilman, currently discretionary allocations at the county are more or less on hold, if you will.
But normally, if they were not on hold, they could still receive discretionary funds?
Certainly, some amount.
Okay. And the city also has discretionary funds as well. So I'm not asking you about that. I'm just mentioning that.
We've never been eligible. We're not even eligible to apply for funds from Visit Pensacola because of the way that all of these things are written. We have never been able to put in, a grant application to receive funding to do any special projects or a special event or anything because we already receive funding from the TDC.
Okay.
And that's another place where if we could have funding from Visit Pensacola, specifically perhaps for the Heritage Trail tours that have been very helpful when they've had people come in from out of state who were considering representing that Pensacola would be a great place to bring customers of tourism agencies here. We have answered the call to receive them at the Heritage Society. We've gotten on their conveyances and gone all around town to show them all of the Heritage Trail sites and all of that. And without this additional funding, I'm not so sure how easily we'll be able to answer those kinds of calls. And this is something that is really important, I think, to this community, is to be able to continue to have this and for tourists to continue to have that experience as at least an option. But I understand, of course, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying as well. And if we did have the shortfall, there is no way whatsoever we would have asked for any additional funding this year, because you're correct. When we first started out for years, we only received like $15,000 for a long time. And I'm talking about a long time. And so it's taken 35 years to get up to an amount that is an amount that we can actually, run the museum with. And so had it not been for the investment, if you will, in cultural museums throughout the state of Florida, we would have kept our request the same. It had already been rumored that that was going to happen based upon discussions and conversations and what have you with local legislators, and just, keeping up with sort of what is going, what impacts that sort of decision. And so in anticipating what occurred in the last couple of weeks, we had already increased our budget to make up for the shortfall.
So, I just have one more thing.
Okay.
I'm just going to say that I think that gives you a good value proposition to go to donors and sponsors and say, we've lost this funding, and if you want us to continue operations, we've got to have some additional funding. The TDC is not this particular tax is not the answer to everyone's issue as far as, if they have a budget shortfall. I mean, we really have to be cautious as how we spend it, because they're limited funds, they're for a particular purpose that can be stretched a little bit. But, I hate that funding got eliminated for you, and I think that we've dealt with that with arts institutions. Lots of different things have lost funding more recently, and so it's very unfortunate. But I hope that you'll understand that the constraints we're working in when we decide how much we're going to allocate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understand.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for coming. Do you know, or do you guys measure with your association how much your association drives tourism, or people come specifically for tourism for what you
Cultural
provide?
tourism? Yes, we keep those metrics as well as Visit Pensacola, and sometimes they have shared them with us as well. So very often, people will specifically will go on our site or the Visit Pensacola site and specifically click on cultural tourism.
Can you tell me what your site is? I tried to look.
It's AAHS Pensacola.org or African American Heritage Society.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the way that we interact with our members as well as those who are attending events. Everything can be done on that one site.
And how many members do you have?
Goodness, probably 300.
And do you guys have like a yearly membership fee, or how's that work?
Oh, yeah, we have a membership fee at different levels.
And how much is normally, what's the level?
Well, the student membership fee is, I think, $35, or the one-person membership fee is $35 per year. Then a couple is $50, and then there's the patron and $100, sponsors $250. Then we have a $500 membership fee that most of the board members take out.
Okay.
And then we previously had a founding circle membership, but generally speaking, we don't really promote that one necessarily because it's $1,000 a year, and yeah. So most people at this particular time are not, interested in doing that one, but we do receive some $500 membership fees, and we have actually received a couple in that higher range last year as well.
So for some reason in your paperwork, your membership financials was $1,620, and then shows it went down to $1,020.
Yeah, we have a lot of
But if you have 300 members, I don't understand how 300 members are only bringing in $1,020.
I'm sure that that's not up to date. But, and also, the reason that it's not, our largest event that get new membership expenses are this time of year. We just had an event, I think it was on June 1st, where people who were members got a discount and everybody took out a membership. None of that would be reflected in this. And also in April, we had another event that was also a membership-driven event. So I thought you meant the most recent number. Do you mean the past?
Just what you submitted. I'm going only by what you submitted. I tried to look through the website. I couldn't find the website to see what the membership fees were.
The website's been there as long as we have.
Okay.
So it is our name.org. And this was done February 28th. Since then, we've collected more memberships.
Okay. And then contractual services, what exactly is that?
Well, we pay speakers, particularly, or if we have MOUs. For example, if we're having a professor, or for example, we had the chairman of the English department do a presentation recently. He declined to be paid this time, but usually we would pay that person under an MOU, and so we call those contractual expenses. In the past, we've had panels anytime we've had a screening, and many of the professionals that sit on our panels are considered to be experts in the area of whatever the screening pertains to, and so we have to pay them. And sometimes they also need to be, they stay in a hotel. We usually put them up somewhere downtown, and so we include that in our contractual expenses.
Thank you. I would suggest, and I don't know if it's available to you but I think because of the staffing issue you have, that you should, I would think that you could look for and get some younger volunteers, because I know there's a lot of students, college students, that need those hours, and they would do it as a volunteer basis, so that and a lot of them, younger ones, would help you with the Facebook and the Instagram and stuff you mentioned. So I think it would be something wise to look at. And I just think in future applications, some of the things you just mentioned, none of that's in the application. So it's very, I don't want to sound negative about this, but it's hard to give myself an excuse to say we should give you $75,000 when it looks like there's no sort of cultural tourism actually happening. Most of the budget seems to go to salary. I'm going by what the application shows. So it's hard to justify saying, hey, let's give $75,000, but $60,000 of it's going to be for salary.
Well,
Folks, we got a lot more to cover, and we've been spending a lot of time on this. Unless there's a burning desire to ask any other questions,
I'm good.
I think we need to move on.
I was going to recommend 50,000.
Okay. Well, Councilman Barrett just recommended 50. Is there another recommendation, or is everybody in support of that?
Mr. Chairman, can I just say their income table and expense table shows a $14,000 surplus at the end of the year. So I don't think we should go to 75. If we go anywhere, definitely go down to 61, but I'm going to start with 50. But I don't think we should be funding people to have money left over at the end of the year.
I think that's on their proposed budget, where they were asking for $125,000
right.
to have the $14,000 surplus.
I think we should stick with the 75,000, which is right at almost 50, it's 53%, so it's right about, follows all the rules. So I'm gonna go back to.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Everybody okay with 75,000?
Yep.
All right. Any opposed to that? Not?
We don't,
Okay.
y'all are going to get it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Howard.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right, moving down, I have it as Summerfest on the spreadsheet, but I think he's applied as what is he calling it?
William
Jazz
Banks
Fest?
Enterprises.
Yeah, Cadillac. I don't see him here today. Any questions or comments? He's not here in the audience.
Yeah, I have
I have a few.
Me
one
too.
comment on the expense table. For the last several years, it has, and for the year coming up, it doesn't list salaries. There's a zero in the salary line item, but when I look at the tax returns, clearly there are salaries listed, and I'm wondering if that's an omission or an error, or what's going on. Also, reconciling the income on the tax returns to the event, it looks like this might be the only event that the enterprise conducts in the year, and the county's been funding this particular event for quite some time now. I don't know how many years, maybe 10, maybe more. That it suggests through the majority opinion event survey that it's producing room nights. I wouldn't argue that, but it also looks like the increase in funding in large part is covering the salaries of the event, more so than the entertainment. And the application doesn't reconcile.
No, and the application actually talks about the cost for the musicians being higher, but doesn't really move that on the budget.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's what they're referring to as salaries and wages. I really do. If you look at the numbers, I think that they're calling what they pay the musicians salaries and wages. They had a loss in 2024 of $40,000, a loss of $93,000. Well, let's see, $93,000 and $83,000, I guess, in 2022. So they've dealing with pretty consistent losses. So I kind of feel like that they're spending a lot on artists and they're operating at a loss. I don't know how they're doing that, but, and I was also kind of wondering how they calculated room nights. And they've got some really interesting figures on their attendance. So their attendance went up to 3,200 in 24-25, and they said their non-Escambia attendance increased from 1,743 to 2,800. So they had a significant increase in non-Escambia, but they had a decrease in Escambia from like 800 to 858 to 400. But then later in their evaluation, it talks about they had an increase in the number of Escambia County. So I don't really understand. Their numbers are off. And then they list on their source of revenue, they only list 2 sources, but they don't even include the 3-day $150 tickets. I don't know where that's reflected either. There's just a lot of issues with this particular one. They say they have $125,000 cash and investments on hand, but they're deriving a big chunk of investment income. So I'm trying to figure out, how are they deriving investment income on the $125,000 that's more than the $125,000? There's just a lot of holes in here. They didn't sign their application. I have no idea when it was submitted. I trust the county that it was submitted on time. But, the impact summary is where they say there were 3,378 people who attended the event. That would have been for 2024, I believe. 40% of those were from Escambia, and 60% were visiting from outside Escambia, which is 1,351 in 2026 outside Escambia, which is completely contrary to what's in their application. And so, their economic impact projection for 25-26 says they're adding another day of the festival too. So I'm like, how in the world are they going to accomplish that with the same level of funding they had for the previous year? So I wish somebody was here to answer the questions. I can't recommend this for anything at this point because there's so many problems with this particular application.
And they're asking for more than 50%.
Questions or comments? Recommendations?
I just want to say I agree with all of that.
You what?
I agree with all of that. I had some of the same exact questions. The tax return was not fully, I know we dinged David for not having tax return submitted, but this was not a full tax, it was like a one-pager. I'd love for taxes to be one page. But I think if they don't submit the full requirement of what should be sent in, then they got to be hit with the same thing that everybody else got hit
Okay, well, it's gone then, right?
All right. I know. All right, so the recommendation is 0 out?
Yep.
All right. Next item is, does anybody else have a problem with that? Concern or recommendation different? No? Okay. Next item is Pensacon.
I like the idea that they're decreasing the amount of money
Yeah.
that they're asking us for. So 350,000 last year, 180 this year, with an operating budget of 879. I think that I think that they have been actively doing what they're supposed to do to continue to grow that festival. I don't know if you call it a festival. Pensacon, a con, the con of whatever form.
Well,
I
they're
will say-
actually down from attendance, though.
Are they?
Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, because from 2023 to now, they're down 44%. And from 24 to 25, they're down 14%.
I will say, they used to come to visit Pensacola for grants, and they used to get the max there is like 50, but they were one of the events that got the most. And then they came last year here and got more than we've ever given them. And this year's Pensacon was the worst turnout for hotels. Oyster Bay, which has 9 rooms, is down the street from the Bay Center. She said, we didn't even sell out. And so I know my hotel's on Davis Highway, we usually sell out for Pensacon, and we didn't even feel any sort of rush from it. So I thought it was off, so I figured, I said, let me ask the folks at Oyster Bay, they're right. And she's like, with my 9 rooms and I didn't sell out. So I think that's why they came back with such a lower amount, and I think the application said one of the artists canceled last minute or something like that is what it said. So I don't know how many total artists come to Pensacon, but I guess if a major one drops out, then maybe people don't buy tickets or show up, so that's what it is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this one's
sir.
a zero for me, too. I'm not even sure if this application was received on time. The date signed says April 1st, which is a day late. You know, I wish somebody was here from this one, too. The numbers, as Councilmember Hoffberger, Commissioner Hoffberger, multiple titles, are about half of what they were in 2023. And when they received no government funding, the higher-end guests were only a quarter of what they were when they received no funding. And, you know, I would ask, why do you think the attendance has dropped almost in half? They didn't complete the projections for fiscal year '26 or the baseline goals from '24. This application's not complete. Sponsorships aren't reflected anywhere, contributions, donations from private sources, they probably need to grow that. And according to their application on page 10, they said they're working on a better way to track cash payments and petty cash expenses during the actual show. So it sounds like to me, they don't even have good financial controls in place. So I'm going to put a zero on this one, too.
Any other comments?
I'm not sure that we should zero it out, only because and I know they were getting money from grants, and last year was the first time they came here. And as I understand, last year, they had new ownership and new people in charge, and that could have been part of the problem. But I think we still have to support this.
You know, just looking at the expense table, perhaps, or the income table, perhaps the $180,000 ask is as a result of the $189,000 net income in fiscal year '25. You know, the two together is $369,000, and it looks like it's, you know, pari passu with the current year's funding at $350. I agree with Councilman Bear. I don't think it's passed the litmus test to receive full funding this year, and I concur also. There's lots of gaps in the application. If we're going to be fair to everyone, we've got to consider the date that the application was submitted. That's gone something I like going to, but unfortunately, I support Councilman Bear at funding at 0% this year.
Brad?
It seems like this may be trending downward. What happens if we give funding and for some reason they delay the event or make it an every other year event? I mean, maybe that's not even a possibility, but does that funding still go to them?
Well, we don't have anybody here from their organization to speak to that. I don't, I mean, it's not up to us on their timing of their events. So if we appropriate it for them for the year and they don't host it, they don't get the money. So if that answers your question in a different way.
It does, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that was, even Juneteenth last year happened, but they didn't fulfill the request. So the money didn't get appropriated last year. Even though we approved it in a budget, the county approved it in a budget, it didn't go because of other reasons.
Mr. Chairman, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
fine, but we tie that money up. We can't spend it on other things until we get to the end of the year. I mean, I work for an organization that gets funding from the county, and it's all reimbursement based, and that money, it's not like we can just go use it for something else during the year. So if we allocate this, it's pretty much theirs until, you know, the end of the
It's
year.
encumbered,
Right.
yes.
So you know, we're going to have a placeholder. I think it could be a really big placeholder based on the number of things that we are not going to fund, and maybe they can get their act together and come back with the right documentation.
All right, well, anybody
I
have
just,
any
I
other
just want to say I
suggestions?
agree, but I agree that we don't want to cancel this event, but I do see that they have a net profit. And if they have a net profit from last year, they can use those funds to keep having the event this year. And like Councilman said, they can get their act together and do what they're supposed to with the funds they get. I think sometimes when they come here and they get such a large amount, it kind of, they're going into it thinking we don't have to work as hard because we've already got such a large amount from whoever. So I think if they realize, hey, I really have to work for these funds and I have to drive tourism here, they'll do what they need to do, and then we'll do what we have to do to keep driving them to keep doing that. So I think it's a harsh lesson, but it's a lesson that needs to be taught.
Yeah, I think some of this also speaks to the discussion about the 501c3 issue. We had this discussion before, and as an example, Mardi Gras Pensacola was a for-profit business that they converted. They created because they said it's for the public, so they created a public organization, so it now is a tax-exempt 501c3. Some of these other organizations are for-profit businesses that we fund. They are definitely developing tourism through their programs. Maybe their application materials aren't supporting that because they're not filling it out properly or completely, et cetera, et cetera. But that's why you're seeing the for-profit. So I think philosophically, do we want to continue to support these for-profit organizations? And I don't think that's for today's discussion, but just putting this out there for future conversations. Is that something, we've gone back and forth, and I thought we had decided not to require it to be a 501c3 to be eligible for these funds, because we continue to support for-profit organizations, because we didn't want to have a really awesome opportunity of developing tourism that might come to us that could be for-profit. As an example, I think we used in our discussion before was Five Flags Speedway came to us with an ask for $55,000 because they were going to be on, I think it was CBS or something, all day long on Saturday, like a prime time doing a race out there, and they were asking for $55,000 to market to get this contract to come in and do it. And I think having our banner along the track saying Pensacola more than paid for the $55,000 in the advertising that we would have had to pay to get that exposure. And so they're a for-profit business, Five Flags Speedway, just like Pensacon, Jazz Fest, all these others. So I think it's, when we're looking at should we fund it based on because they have profits and they should fund it themselves. I mean, personally, I'd like to see them, if they're community organizations, be asking for, be a community organization, but I don't think it's a requirement. And so I don't want to say, we're not going to fund it because they made profits last year. If they did advertising to bring people here, to drive tourists, to spend money, stay in the hotels and shop in the shops, eat in the restaurants and stuff, I want to see us continue to do that. But at some point, do we continue doing that for the rest of their lives? The existence of the organization, I don't know. But
Not according to the eligibility unless that's changed. Seriously, I don't mean to.
I know. No, I know.
But it's gotta,
I'm not sure the form is correct
I
based
get
on
that,
our
but they all have that
previous
form, yeah.
board meeting, council meetings.
yeah.
I would, and I agree to some point on that I think we want to fund events and for-profit or non-profit organizations to host events here to drive tourism, but at some point in time, the goal should be that they can be self-sustaining, and that, just like they're at Visit Pensacola, they get 5 years at Visit Pensacola, it was 5, I think it's 3 now, to be self-sustaining, and that's kind of what caused them to start coming here. So I think at some point in time, we need to have that conversation, and if you're a for-profit or, you should be able to sustain your own events at some point in time and not just, say, hey, it's a free check, I'm coming here. And the problem I feel is they're getting complacent, and I'd hate to lose this event, but I also think the rules apply to everybody alike. If you didn't do your paperwork and you didn't do it right, it should be hard to get 100,000. It should be hard to get 50,000, because the bank's not, you go to the bank for 50,000, they're, you need blood samples and all kinds of things you gotta give them. So I think, we have to hold them to a high standard. If you want tax dollars, you have to do it right.
I agree. All right, so we're at 0 for Pensacon? Yeah, okay. 0 it is. All right, next item is the Pensacola Beach Chamber. That is the second application on there. Last year, they got $87,750. This year, they're asking for $100,500. Come on up.
The entire event's 158.5.
It's two different, they do 2 different events.
They had it separated
Different
out,
money.
didn't they?
Yes.
For-
Hey, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Jessica Simpson, President and CEO of the Beach Chamber. They are not separated out in the expenses and income tables, but inside the grant they are. And the only reason that there's an increase is based on potential tariff effects. There's nothing additional, there's no change to the actual show or the length of the shows. Both of them, one of them's the July 4th and the other one is the New Year's Eve. And so there's no change to the show other than the fireworks company's assumption of the effect of tariffs. So they've agreed, and I put this in there, to re-quote the shows closer to, it was very difficult to quote the price of it more than a year away.
So right now, are both shows, are they quoting 158,500 for both
They're
shows?
quoting 100,000, well, 158,000, yes, for both shows. Your proposal is 100,000. So we have a partnership with the Santa Rosa Island Authority, and that's in the total of 158. They're $55,000 supporter of the July 4th show. And so that's included in the 158, their partnership, which
So-
should be separated out in the
So the
expense
two
sheet.
of us would be the full income. Is
Say
that
that again?
correct? So you're asking $100,500 from us,
Correct.
and you're saying 48 or something from them?
55,000 from the Santa Rosa Island Authority. And then we have 3,000 in private sponsorships that go towards the shows and advertising.
I have a question. Is there a domestic fireworks manufacturer? So we don't have to deal with tariffs?
It's a great question.
Only because
Does anyone have an
I
answer?
look at tariffs every day.
Okay.
And we've shifted a lot of domestic, to a lot of domestic manufacturing. I got to think that somebody makes fireworks.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Right.
I can certainly seek that out. Pyro Shows is an organization that does both our shows and the downtown Pensacola shows. They are very high quality, specifically when it comes to the permitting process. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with any of them, but a good thing and a pro and a con is that they do shows all over the country and will tell you, standing here today, that the Escambia County permitting is one of the more difficult in any show they do around the country. And they're very good at it. So it's a very professional show done the right way. And certainly, if they have a domestic supplier, I'm happy to ask. Again, the shows can be re-quoted closer to their date.
That's what I'm suggesting, and I can tell you right now, speculation on tariffs is just that. Personally, what I ask for people to do is show me the tariff certificate, and I'm happy to pay it. To date, I've never seen a tariff certificate. And so what I'm suggesting is that we could just ask the vendor, can they manufacture their own fireworks, or can they buy domestic, and kind of create some bulwark against that tariff and just push back on price
Certainly.
increases under the speculation of tariffs.
Right.
In your request, you say additionally, we're requesting an advance of $34,750 on October 31st to cover the deposit.
Correct.
Whatever we may appropriate, you have to talk to that man behind you.
Okay,
but
certainly.
We don't actually write those checks, so
Got
that would
it.
have to come from, he doesn't write them either, but he fights to get them. Any other comments or suggestions?
I have trouble, once again, with that high of a percentage of this.
Of the increase?
No, of your total budget for these two. So in your application, it said it couldn't be more than 50% of the cost of, which I've been kind of paring back and adhering to. And so yours right now is, I mean, you're asking for 63% of the total, so. And I get tariffs.
Sure.
I mean, I get the whole idea and the fear factor and all that kind of stuff, and we all love fireworks, not a question. Not mainly, we all like them.
Fireworks? Oh, go ahead.
to be 90,500, which is a little bit of an increase, but not, yeah.
Okay, just one quick note. What you're seeing is the program budget, not the full budget for the Pensacola Beach Chamber. These are the funds used
And that's what the
produce this
application
show.
says, yes. Of the actual event.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what, and that's
Just wanna
what
make sure you
that
understand that.
corresponds to the application.
Okay.
So the total chamber budget is much greater than the
Yes.
Yes.
$201,000
Mhm.
for the concern about the 50%.
Yeah.
Is it accurate that the vendor, they're speculating an increase of about $5,700 on the tariffs?
Mhm.
With that, I'd propose adding $5,700 to the amount that was funded last year, $87,500, for a total funding of $93,500.
I like it.
Do you have to pay the tariffs twice since it's two different shows, or do they order everything at once?
It's just one.
Just once, okay.
I like his 93.5.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Any other comments, recommendations, concerns? So 93.5.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any concern with that? Hearing none, all right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Jessica. All right, moving on. All right, the next item is Sale Pensacola. And I don't see Tim here.
I have some comments.
What's that?
I have a few
Yes, sir.
comments about this one.
Let's
First
hear.
of all, it says Sale Pensacola, but, it's clearly a foiling. It's a new group this year, and they mention Sale Pensacola in their documentation, and they cherry-pick some things that they think are beneficial, and they leave out the important stuff, like some of the expenditures, the revenue and things, which we did not get a copy of for the current year. And the biggest issue I have with foiling Pensacola or foiling, whatever this group is called, is that when they did this program, I was not on the TDC when this happened, but when the TDC voted to fund them, there was no discussion whatsoever with the city of Pensacola. There was no discussion of infrastructure, needs for police, any of the challenges that they might encounter. And I would encourage us not to allocate them any money until they've had that discussion with the city, because I know for a fact, after talking to the mayor today about that they have not. And it created major problems with Pensacola Mardi Gras because they were having their event and we were spread so thin with police, it was very difficult to provide necessary, crime prevention and just management of traffic. It was very, very much a problem in the city. And so the mayor asked me that before we grant them money, that they have that discussion and talk about their needs down in Maritime Park area, or whatever they happen to need before we approve this. Having said that, the application, and I've filled these applications out now. I've done it 3 times for county funding. And there's a little thing at the beginning that says a 25-word description of the program. Theirs was 54 words. I'm like, how can you not squeeze that down to 25 words? I mean, don't be too wordy. In the application, they mentioned that there was $315,000 from last year spent on key team members. There was money from the 315 that was spent on key team members and logistics. I don't know what that means. I don't know what a key team member is. I don't know. I know what logistics are because I served as a logistics guy in the Army, but that's not specific enough for me. Under the question related to similar partner organizations, they said none. So they have no partners in this area. And we heard it just a little while ago that American Magic is not working with them. They haven't really asked to collaborate with them. It doesn't seem like they collaborate with the Yacht Club. And I think I would try and have some partners if I were them. On page 9 of their application, they list a goal of 400 to 450 attendees. And just below that, they have a goal of 300 plus attendees. So I'm like, what's the real goal? I don't know what the real goal of what they want for next year. And that's what they talk about when they say attendees. They mean people that are participating, competitors in their races and things. On the income table, they listed $30,000 of other income with no explanation whatsoever. There's a line for that that says what is this for? And all they had to do was put that in there. They, as I said, they cherry-picked out the attendance numbers and media value from 2025, but they failed to include budget numbers for fiscal year '25. Why would they do that? Why would they leave that out? Oh, it's another organization? But if there's another organization, you can pick some stuff but not others. They list 478 staff members. I'm wondering, were these all compensated? I didn't see that, and I really wanted them to give me a definition of what a VIP was. They seem to spend a lot of time on getting VIPs to do things, and I don't know if the VIPs are compensated either. So I had a lot of questions, but I would tell the council that I think that we need to put this one on hold until they've discussed their needs for support services, infrastructure with the city of Pensacola. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with that. Also, I had a problem with their room nights. They said that they got over 10,000 room nights, and next year they're going to get 21,000. Any group in the world would love to have those numbers, and I didn't see that at that time of year they could support that. So I would think we don't fund them at all.
So one of the concerns we had last year when we appropriated the money, the 315, we went through Sail Pensacola because Luca, the man who puts on Sail, the foiling week, is not, there's no domestic entity that we could somehow have a clawback to or hold accountable. And so they partnered with Sail Pensacola last year. Sail Pensacola does not seem to be a partner in it this year, although the line item says Sail Pensacola. And obviously the Yacht Club's not, and American Magic is not, so I would support the zero funding. I think everybody enjoyed seeing the program last year, the foiling week, and the videos are pretty. I don't know that I can believe that they booked 10,000 room nights. That's pretty, I don't know how many rooms we have in this town, but, you know, even if they did it for a week, that's pretty huge. So anyway, does anybody have any other thoughts?
They'd have to sell out 25 hotels for 9 nights straight. I don't think they did that.
I don't think so.
I didn't get that.
That was for the 10,000 or for next year's proposed 20,000?
No, that's for 10,000. Yeah, that's, yeah. When I seen that, I said, a lot of their visitors probably could be credited to Mardi Gras, but even that doesn't say that they create 10,000 room nights. So I know Foiling Week did not create that many room nights for that many hotels to sell out. for 9
Mr.
days.
Chairman, I think we're building a nice placeholder for some of these other organizations, some of which are in the room right now.
I think so too. Okay, so zero funding. Anybody else have any problems with that?
Yep, that's where we are.
Okay. All right, next item is Pensacola Yacht Club. I see a couple of folks here. Welcome.
Good afternoon. James Simpkins, Commodore, Pensacola Yacht Club.
Yeah, just pull it
Ready
over
for your
to you.
questions.
It should pull over to you.
Okay. Try
Any
this again.
Comments or questions? Yes, sir. Councilman?
I'll try and take it easy on you. So in the section on similar partner organizations, you didn't list anything. So you don't have any partners, anybody you're working with? Because American Magic thinks they're working with you.
For these events, we are working directly with the class associations. But in terms of local partners, we just involve them as they're needed. So I took that definition as somebody that we're actually having an equity or a business partnership with.
Okay, I can understand that. So in the past, you've been able to host things just fine without county support?
Correct. We've done a limited number of events in the past independently or through independent fundraising. The focus this year is to take that program, and just as Terry outlined the growth of sailing here, we've been able to do a limited number of events with our volunteer resources and with our budget, with some occasional sponsors. We're looking to, most importantly, grow a marketing and a communications discipline, or at least be able to create that, to generate more and more higher quality events. And our focus is really looking at national and international events and being able to grow that.
Okay. Could you apply to Pensacola Sports for any funding?
In the past, we have.
Right.
The scope, based on the typical funding amount, we're looking at larger scope. And we
Okay.
developed an annual program, and that's what you see before you.
Okay. And then in your goals and metrics, you had 64 event registrations in fiscal year '24, and you're projecting an increase to 580.
That's correct.
With the funding the county will provide. That's a huge increase.
It is. We have multiple large events. We didn't do that many national, international events. We anticipate the WASP class, and also we're looking to have a youth regatta next fall. And both of those that's about almost 300 new entries right there between those two additional events.
And you mentioned self-calculated room nights. Can you tell me how you do that?
Well, I'd rather just jettison that number, and there should be a supplementary table. We partnership with Pensacola Sports, and they actually gave us, and we submitted at a later date, the detailed information generated through their contractor.
Okay, I'll look at that. And it's, as far as I can see, you're going to increase your annual budget by like 400%. And explain to me why you have $20,000 in there for travel expenses?
For some of the international events, there's a requirement to have a principal race officer or PRO, as well as umpires and judges. So as we acquire those larger events, we may need to fly people in from elsewhere in the country or internationally to help with basically the race management for these larger and higher profile events.
Okay, and you said you're going to hire an agency, I think, to do some marketing advertising for you.
Correct.
Does the contractual services overlap with that, or with marketing and promotion, where is that going to come from? Which one, contractual service or marketing and promotion?
Professional services, that's really where we put the expenses for contractors associated with program
Wait,
management.
that was professional? I'm asking about contractual.
Oh, contractual. Let me pull up my table here.
You have zeroed out for professional services.
Okay. So that's where, so in contractual is where we placed some of the regatta expenses for bringing in principal race officers and other support officials. So marketing would be the separate line item.
So that would be the agency that you're going to hire?
Correct.
Okay. And then why doesn't your application for funds have your complete budget in it? I had that question.
Let's see. Are you talking about on the expense table on page?
Talking about for the total Pensacola Yacht Club budget?
You know, I asked that question, I don't have any notes next to it, so we'll just skip that one for
Okay.
now. I'll let, so you have $602,000 in cash and $860,000 in investments. Why are you all not spending that?
That's focused on our capital program, and that's how we're covering major facility expenses associated with the club.
Okay. And then you say the organization is all volunteer, but the yacht club has $1.2 million in salaries. Is this are you separating this out from the total yacht club?
Correct, because most of the professional salaries are for our house operations and our professional club management. And we do have a sailing director who's employed, but he does not, and he's not part of this specific yachting program. So when it comes to race planning, race management, that's volunteer driven.
Okay, that's it for me now.
All right.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Tish?
I do have a question. The $180,000 request is just to have future events, but you don't have any specific event that you already have on the books or coming up or planning?
No, this whole budget was driven by 8 events of many that we'll be hosting in the county's Physical 26. So it should be in the application, but we actually develop costs around those specific 8 events.
Okay, and then I seen that you have your current year budget, you show a $51,935 in event expenses. How much of that event expense is loss of event space?
That would be roughly 30% of that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Just one question. The 8 events that you're mentioning, are those new events for the upcoming year?
There's 2 existing events that we're looking to grow, and the rest are net new.
Outstanding. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to add, all of our events, if you notice in our schedule, they are typically going to be in the shoulder seasons from a tourist perspective. Our peak season for sailing is October, November, as well as March and April. So that's really where we try to fill our calendar.
Can I?
Shirley, please.
Yeah, I think this is an event that we should, this is an expenditure that we should consider strongly to fund, because with the America Magic here, we kind of challenged the yacht club to go out and host more sailing events. Well, they're doing that at 8 events at $180,000, and I just think it would be a wise investment to support them.
I would agree, especially in the off-season. That's what we're looking for, is more tourism in the off-season, so thank you.
We don't call it off-season anymore. We call it a shoulder season. Trying to bring the tourists, not tell them we're closed. I would agree. I think especially we saw how much excitement there was around foiling week last year, I guess a few months ago. And, obviously we're not moving forward with that project right now. And there will be other regattas that American Magic says they will be bringing to us. I think this is a great opportunity just to continue to expand that program and bring these people in, because generally they stay longer and spend more per visit. It's a high impact.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention that one question I asked you. It was because you're just a segmented part of the big yacht club that we're talking about. So that was my question. So that's why you didn't include that. And that's fine. And I appreciate all your answers. You're very well prepared, which I'd hoped for. And I definitely support this, especially hearing from American Magic and the fact that you are going to work together. I think that's critical.
Very much. And one story I'd like to tell just to end all of this is you talk about a butterfly flapping its wings in a hurricane forming. So in 2018, we held a youth regatta, and we invited American Magic here to be part of the kickoff presentation. And that really is what one of the ways they found their way to this wonderful place for sailing. So this is a child's sail flapping, brought about American Magic and everything great coming with it.
And I read that in there too, and I thought, well, they're claiming all the responsibility for bringing American Magic here, which maybe it was. I mean, I like to think that our mayor and other people in this community helped them stay, but they needed an introduction. So
that's right. We provided the spark.
That's great. Thank you.
We gave them $1.5 million up here. That helped incentivize. Triumph gave them $8.5 million. Gave the city $8.5 million to build a home for them. So
that did help.
It helped. Any other comment? So are we at recommendation of the full request of $180,000? All right. Anybody have any concerns? No. Sounds good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, we knew.
I don't know who he was, but you should ask who the regatta chair was.
All right, next item is UWF Historic Preservation, the trust. We had the chairman here a little while ago, but I guess he couldn't make it. He's like a squirrel. He saw something else shiny.
Rob Overton, Executive Director of the Trust.
Welcome. All right. Any comments or questions, council? The request is an increase to $265,000 from $250,000.
Rob, I got a question. Why are you taxed with maintaining the cemeteries?
Because the Board of County Commissioners told me to. About 5-6 years ago. When they were unifying Visit Pensacola, ACE, and Pensacola Sports budget, they unified the cemeteries that were funded separately under us. So we don't maintain them, we just reimburse the cemeteries, much like Visit does with the other entities.
Who owns those cemeteries?
They are owned, city owns some. One, St. Michael Cemetery is a state park. They do get some state park funding. A couple of them are owned by I'm not sure who owns those things.
Who are the different?
The $15,000 increase is not for the Historic Trust and the museums, it's increase for the cemeteries. And
The
that's
increased
because
cost.
basically the maintenance of those has gone up.
Is there a reason why the city won't maintain it? Or you don't know?
I don't
They
know.
used to. Do you know any of the city council members?
I can ask.
Don't know any.
The city has, the cemeteries have received some funds from the city, and the city has also helped with the cemeteries with sending out some of the city crews after hurricanes for some of the larger. So the city has been a partner in that. It's just not giving us the funding to pass through. They've done it in kind support.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So is that the $2,400 from the city? Is that what they give?
That comes to our organization
Okay.
just to help us support the Historic Trust. They don't have, I don't have money in our budget from the city for the cemeteries. The city
Okay,
has helped
gotcha.
through other departments. I think through the tree fund, they paid for trees and things like that.
What about grants? Do you all apply for grants? Do you get grants?
We do grants. We do quite a lot of grants. We get grants from the state. We've also, last year, we were in the process of spending an Impact 100 grant for our Children's Museum.
Okay.
We have gotten other grants from the Humanities Council. Those were cut back a little bit. And then we've gotten some other private grants. So they vary. This year, we've budgeted to receive about $70,000 in grants.
Okay.
Last year, we got a little over $1 million in grants.
Okay. I know we're looking just like a small portion, because
Right.
even when you look at like the top 5 employees, that doesn't reflect in your budget, because that's, some of them, I guess, UWF funded positions.
We're a little unique. We are a nonprofit that has a contract to manage properties for the
Right.
university. The university provides staffing for the nonprofit,
Right.
so they're paid out of the university's budget.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I'd support the full amount.
Me too.
All right, so there's a recommendation for the full 265,000. Any other amounts? Nope. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, so we'll put in 265,000. All right, so that gets us through that first section, then down to the next section of the unified budget. ACE, but I do not see anyone here from ACE. So
So that,
bunch.
that top part was 642,000.
No, 709.
Did I just do something wrong? What did I
Yes,
miss?
709, 500.
I don't know what I did, missed something.
So we knocked out we just knocked out 1.4 million, which is more than we had to knock out. So the unified budget, the 3 organizations, just because we have a lot of new members, the county commission asked those 3 agencies to work together. They had all separate appropriations years ago, and they asked to go together to unify. That's why they called unified budget. And there's an MOU among the 3 organizations on how they split up whatever appropriation goes to the unified budget. I believe now they might have separate appropriations again because of the DMO designations. But it's, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's like 74 and a quarter or something goes to Visit Pensacola.
Yep, that's correct.
Darren, welcome.
So, yeah, 74.25% for Visit Pensacola. Pensacola Sports is now 11.
Tell you real
And 14.75 for ACE. Yep. And so now Pensacola Sports has been separated out and is handling its own accounting and submissions, but ACE is still underneath the umbrella of Visit Pensacola as far as that appropriation. So we have 2 separate agreements, and then we have a sub-agreement with ACE.
Any comments, questions about any of the unified budget organizations or their requests? So we seem to have the money because we cut 1.4 million out of those other requests. And we only needed to cut 1.3, whatever, 1,362,000. So is that a recommendation? So
Full amount.
Shirley's recommending fully fund the request. Is there any comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll put those in as the placeholders.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Council members, just to reiterate or bring back to your attention what you said earlier, you know, this was going to be set aside more or less as a reserve for some of these other agencies to come back possibly. Has that, it sounds like that may have changed?
So I think what Stefan is saying is when we zeroed out some of these and we said we can come back to them, those funds will have to come out of this amount that we've appropriated this year. Do you have the amount of the special event reserve fund to see what's actually in there that could be appropriated in the year?
Do we need to appropriate the remaining amount as a placeholder?
Yeah, actually, so we don't have that much. I mean,
Current special event, something told me y'all would ask for that, so I had it ready.
no. But then
So
we did this fully.
we are just under
gives us-
1.7 million in special event dollars.
Okay, so
Correct. That is the current reserve for special event.
are we going to have any more? Do you anticipate at the end of the fiscal year, the unspent money, the way we had it structured, will that get funded?
So that
with
will be
more
your
dollars?
base, and then it'll go from there. So if there's any additional dollars, it'll be added to it. So that's how I treat these financially. So once these are set, those are there unless we move something out, which is why I asked for clarification, you know, when council is approving some other event or something during the course of the year.
Okay, so we currently have in that reserve fund 1.7 roughly, 1.7
Roughly,
million?
it's, to be specific, it's 1,691,270.
Okay, so we have funding in our reserve, our special event restricted fund to cover those other items that we discussed putting
How much?
placeholders.
How much
Almost 1.7 million.
that
So,
we can allocate to like Pensacola Mardi Gras or something?
yep,
Okay,
those are special events that we
Okay.
could fund out of that reserve, that restricted fund.
because we only had like 38,000
We only
left
have
over
30, yeah,
with
of
this.
this. We didn't,
Yeah, there is a reserve fund that, years ago, we set up these restricted funds, there were no reserve funds, and we put in funding mechanisms through, you probably explain it better.
It's the council's reserve policy.
Yeah, we have a reserve policy. And they're funded through, like, when there's additional money at the end of the year that's unspent that we brought in, maybe above and beyond what was proposed?
Correct.
or projected?
It's more or less a reserve and fund balance policy for tourist development tax dollars as they roll from year to year.
Yeah, so it has accumulated almost 1.7 million, 1.69. So there's plenty of money in that fund to fund these if we continue to go ahead and fund the unified budget at their request.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Is there any other discussion related to these items? I think we've gone through every item, every line item.
Mr. Chairman, there is one
Yes.
application that's not on your line items. It was the Santa Rosa Island Authority for Beach Renourishment. That was included in your backups. You can find it on PDF page
Yeah,
538.
Yeah, Phil, we did that in a previous meeting where we've
Right.
already approved
Okay,
those
perfect.
funds, so.
Thank you.
So and we have on this spreadsheet, $1 million for beach renourishment. $500,000 is our normal annual
Copy, sir.
allocation we've done, and the additional $500,000 is to pay down their
Understood.
loan from the county.
Copy.
So thank you for bringing that up, appreciate it. All right, so, let me save this before I forget. And I'll get this, and if you weren't writing it down, I've got it, I can send it to you all. So, any other comments, questions about that? All right, so we can't take any formal action at this meeting, but this is a recommendation to to us at the next meeting, to the TDC.
Which is soon.
Which is in just a moment. All right, well, with that, the only other item is closing remarks. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to reserve those to the end of the TDC meeting?
Next meeting?
All right, well then, with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned, and we'll reconvene for our regular meeting, and give us 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Thanks. y'all ready? Oh, are we still missing the commissioner? I guess she'll come back. I call it to order. All right, well, she'll come back, I guess. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Escambia County Tourist Development Council meeting, not to be confused with our previous meeting, which was the budget workshop. This is a regular meeting. It is June 17th. It is approximately 4:46 p.m. Philip, if you would, please, was the meeting properly advertised?
The meeting was properly advertised again on the 12th of June.
Great, thank you. And if you would, please call the roll.
Matish Patel. James Reeves. Here. Ashley Hoffberger. Here. Shirley Cronley.
Here.
David Baer.
Here.
Brad Mullinex.
Here.
Charles Baer.
Here.
Jennifer Brayer.
Here.
And Jason Nicholson.
Here.
Great, thank you. We do have quorum, so this meeting is officially called to order. This time we will do public forum. I do have a lot of sign-ups for public forum, so please limit your comments to 3 minutes because of time. We do have first Dion Dunn. And if you would please, when you get to the microphone, introduce yourself and say, I don't care if you told me where you live. Go ahead. Just
My name's
introduce
Dion
yourselves.
Dunn. I live on Pensacola Beach.
Thank you.
I'm a native to Pensacola, born and raised here. And I'm coming to you to ask you to not fund the project for the Gateway project to demolish the toll booth. We don't feel like those funds are appropriately used there. We'd like to see the money put somewhere else, if anywhere, but not there. The toll booth is fine, it's existing, it's not gonna really improve the traffic. The traffic issue on the beach is from lack of parking, it's from 20+ thousand people coming here on a regular basis. So unless you're going to increase the roads, put more parking, there's no need to, none of that's gonna help the traffic. So the toll booth is there, the transponders are there, the plate readers are there. Just remodel it if you want to minimize the toll, increase the flow of traffic so they can hurry up and get to the red light and stop. That's fine, but I think the money would be better spent maybe going back to the bathrooms the way they were supposed to be originally, and that would improve the experience for our visitors, who seem to be very important, over the residents. The residents who come here, who call Pensacola Beach home, they like to drive and park at the Casino Beach parking lot. I did that when I was a kid, used the bathrooms, and that could be funded there. But my whole point is, please do not fund this Gateway project and do not put that sign over the road. Thank you.
Just for clarification, there were never bathrooms. They were changing rooms without plumbing or any other utilities.
Ashley?
Yes, ma'am?
Are you referring to the bathrooms
I'm-
at Casino Beach?
I'm referring to the $250 we reallocated from the changing stations, not from the restrooms. Are we referring to two different things?
We may be.
Okay.
Are the changing rooms at Casino Beach?
No, they're not, because
Okay.
we did not move forward with the
Where are
construction.
the changing rooms?
We did not move forward with the construction on those.
Okay, but the money you were going to put to that has now been.
For the changing rooms, not for the bathrooms. There were never any bathrooms.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Regardless, wherever the money's coming from, I don't think it needs to go to the Gateway project as it has been presented in its current state. Thank you.
Thank you, Dion. And I do apologize. I noticed that you'd signed up to speak to the agenda item, not just a public forum. So you're okay? Okay, thank you. All right.
Excuse me, I just wanted to be on record that me, along with many others, are not about this Gateway project.
Okay, thank you. All right, but the folks who have signed up, the other speakers who have signed up just for public forum, Kevin Wade?
Kevin Wade, 413 Southeast Boblets. Just trying to get to the point. I'm hoping that Commissioner Hofberger will be able to bring back the changing rooms like that. And with whatever happens with the Gateway project, I hope that she can bring that back, or all of you can bring it back. I have a little video that I'd like to show, if Dave can roll this.
Of business is under other business, public facilities, funding request, Commissioner Bender. I think everybody has a packet in front of them. And Commissioner Bender would like to present it. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something that I've had our facilities working on and looking to move forward in a design build project. But one of the things that I felt was lacking on Pensacola Beach was the ability for a beach facility for changing rooms. And so oftentimes the bathrooms under the public safety building, they get wet, hot, damp, muggy, but they're also bathrooms that people go in to try to change. And so to have a separate building immediately in front of the bathrooms, adjacent to the showers that are currently there, so someone could shower off, walk up the ramps to the women's or the men's side, and change. There would also be family changing rooms on each side, so that if a mom has 2 or 3 kids, they could all go in there, or the dad has the kids, we could do that.
All right. Any other, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Since we're voting to spend money, why don't we do a roll call?
Jeff Bagash,
Yes.
James Reeves,
Yes.
Mary Hoxing,
Yes.
Shirley Cronley,
Yes.
David Bayer,
Yes.
Ronald Rivera,
Yes.
Matish Patel,
Yes.
Tanaid Broughton,
Dave Broughton, yes.
Casey Jones.
All right, thank you, Board.
Thank you.
And thank you for that. Then there was a bit of the middle that was definitely missing from that, as there are in the conversations all the time here. And I love the beach. I thank you all for what you're doing, and the wishes of the people from the beach. Just astoundingly wonderful people all the time. And I would love to see the changing rooms come. That's one of those little amenities that isn't going to have residual dollars. You're not going to be the funding sources that it's going to be bringing are going to be the kind that will return in people's mind year after year after year after year of just a tiny little thing that was an amenity that the beach was able to go ahead and provide, and that the tourism dollars were able to go ahead and provide. And bring it on. Yeah, I hope that this can come back to that. Thank you.
I don't know how to stop it. Sorry, I don't know how to stop it. Thank you, Kevin. How do you know you're next?
Do you need to take that?
Nope, that was my timer. I have to set the timer.
Thank you, Chairman Bear.
Next up, Michelle Pino.
Thank you. And we are here to respectfully request that Commissioner Hofstadter, now that she's had some time, I'm sorry, Hofberger, sorry about that. That was an honest error. I'm tired. You guys did not win the paint drying contest this week because of Trump's birthday, but I mean, fiscal responsibility is not sexy, right? But you guys did it, and it's really, really important. I mean, we were right down to the difference of $4,000 on one of those projects, correct? And so I hope that with a little passage of time, it will become evident that what is going to balloon into a 10 million plus project on that sign, and I'll get to that argument on that actual item. What got killed was a $750,000 changing station that many of you just saw you voted for. Mr. Reeves, I'm sure you already had gotten to all of this, and maybe you were going to bring it up. So if you were, I'm sorry for stealing your thunder, because I know you're a hawk on tracing things that you voted for and what your money was for. So I'm not here to be combative. I'm here to ask that there's a change of heart on this, because there was no really good reason given for why this scant amount of money needed to be taken from a fully formed project. And Commissioner Bender, what's missing in the two clips, there was a discussion in the middle, and Commissioner Bender and Burgash had a discussion about that $750,000 came distinctly out of the BCC's money that they give towards TDT projects. And Jeff was saying, well, you better hold some back because I want some bathrooms on Perdido Key. And Robert said, yeah, this is some contingency. So his project was actually only $560,000. They voted for $750,000. For whatever reason, straight out of the gate, Commissioner Hofberger canceled the project. And even before she was actually sworn in as elected, Molly Barrows makes it clear on the sheet that I've presented to y'all that project was stopped in October. And then Commissioner Hofberger wins the election November 5th. Straight out of the gate, 2 nights later, November 7th board meeting, packed into a budget, the consent agenda. It was just voted for en masse, and even in the backup, it doesn't specifically say that it's going for the gateway. It just says, well, we're going to cancel this contract for the changing rooms, and it's going to another project. I don't believe, although I could have missed it, that it ever came back to the TDC to get your input on shifting these funds. But to be clear, this was a recommendation that the TDC voted for unanimously to recommend to the BCC on this project. And many of you who were up there actually voted for it. So I hope maybe we can have a return of it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's our final speaker during public forum that has signed up. So next item on the agenda is review and approval of the meeting minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. The April 15th meeting minutes of our regular meeting and the May 20th budget workshop meeting that we started and stopped. But we have minutes from those. Do you want to take them individually, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
to
I
approve
move the approval of both sets of minutes, April 15th and May 20th.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any debate or discussion, any additions or changes? Any objections? Hearing no objections, please show those adopted. All right. The next item was status of funds available. Does anyone need to hear Jeremy say it again? Great. Moving on. Thank you. All right. Next item is action item, approval of proposed annual budget. So we just went through a long meeting, a great discussion, and Philip printed out a copy of the recommendations that we just went through. Please look over those and make sure I didn't make any mistakes.
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the proposed budget.
All right.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Philip, if you would please call the roll, since this is appropriation.
Matish Patel.
Here.
No, yes or no?
Yes or no?
On the vote. On the motion. Sorry.
That was not the question.
James Reeves. Ashley Hoffberger. Shirley Cronley.
Yes.
David Bear.
Yes.
Brad Mullinex.
Yes.
Charles Bear.
Yes.
Jennifer Brer,
Yes.
Jason Nicholson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you so much. 7, how many people? We have 9 people, 9-0. Thank you. Next item is approval to roll over the remaining 2024 appropriations into the 2025 year for both Visit Pensacola and ACE. Stefan, do you want to come up and discuss that? So last year, we made the appropriation. Some of the funds for each of the organization were not spent in that fiscal year, and they're asking to roll them over into this current fiscal year. Some of them were spent but maybe not reimbursed by the clerk's office. Some of them, like ACE uses for theirs, those are Fufu Fest funds, which actually doesn't happen until the next fiscal year, but it's appropriated in the previous fiscal year. So there was never in the appropriation agreement they received this year the rollover of those funds, and so the county has encumbered them for those appropriations and is just asking for this formal process.
David, you summarized that pretty well. So the accounting process, so these are not new accounting rules. These are the existing accounting rules that are now being applied. The clerk's office has sent out basically today and the accrual process, year-end accrual, and what things should be accrued based on the accounting treatment of this that has been shared with Visit Pensacola and ACE and various partners. I don't know if you were copied on that email, Chairman, but if not, I will make sure that you get it. Tourist development tax reimbursement process is currently being worked on, and we should have that process out soon in my conversations with the clerk's office. So those things are moving forward. So for the, I'm sorry.
Did they give you any idea of an anticipated date that we could have that process completed and ready to go?
I feel like it will be within the next month, and that may be maybe even sooner.
Okay.
It's just there's some staff people out right now, so when they get back, they're going to get together and go back over it, and then they're also going to meet with me, and we're going to go over it together as well.
Great, thank you.
So again, for ACE and Visit Pensacola, so with those accounting treatments, certain things became ineligible through prepayments and things of that nature. So these activities have to have a deliverable, they have to have occurred, and let's say if it's a TV ad, the TV ad should have ran prior to September 30th. You know, if it's a magazine article, it should have ran before September 30th of each fiscal year. So due to those accounting changes, those things that may have been prepaid for 24, but ultimately happened in 25, those were recorded in 25. So the balances that I believe has been shared with council, those are the current balances of the POs for fiscal year 24 that we would be reappropriating into fiscal year 2025.
All right. Any comments? Any questions?
Second.
So we have a motion, and a second. Is there any further debate or discussion?
Those are already approved by the clerk to be paid, or we don't know?
So the clerk is basically finished with 2024. So again, these are the balances. ACE the purchase order has not technically been closed yet, but the 2024 Visit Pensacola purchase order has been closed. And the 1.4 million roughly is the balance.
So would Visit Pensacola get their funds if ACE is not closed, or how does that work?
So we are in the process of closing ACE's. I think there's still a few more questions for ACE.
But the funds have been approved by us and the county commission for last year's appropriation agreement. Just haven't gotten them approved for reimbursement or, I guess, final approval of the expenditures yet. They're in the process.
Correct. And if this makes it easier for council, so upon closing of the fiscal year 24 PO for ACE, whatever that balance is, the council could recommend bringing that forward.
Yep. So the amount that you sent in the email that was shared with
It,
everyone.
it should be pretty close to that.
I don't have it in front of me.
So we need to put that in the motion, what the numbers are?
I would say you could just say the balances of
Okay.
those fiscal year 24 purchase orders.
Okay.
Is
I'll
that
make
an
that motion.
amended motion? Do you amend your second to?
Uh-huh,
to
I'm
match?
with them.
So the motion to roll over the remaining balances from 24 into 25's fiscal year. All right, any other debate or discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. If you would, please call the roll.
Matish Patel.
Yes.
James Reeves. Yes. Ashley Hoffberger.
Yes.
Shirley Cronley.
Yes.
David Baer.
Yes.
Brad Mullinex.
Yes.
Charles Baer.
Yes.
Jennifer Brer.
Yes.
Jason Nicholson.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, other business, Pensacola Beach Gateway Project. I put this on our agenda. There seems to be a lot of noise around this project
Yes.
right now. And we do have a couple of people that signed up to speak. Do you want to hear the public speakers before we discuss?
We can. I have a narrative and some background that might answer a few questions. Can I give that first?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
wonderful. So I want to take a moment to share the story behind the Gateway Project and explain how we got to where we are. After, yes, and be responsible and transparent. Back in January of 2025, I met with Debbie Bowers and requested a solicitation to remove the old toll plaza and build a decorative arch to house the tolling equipment. That solicitation was issued as requested, but when the contract was negotiated, I was surprised to find out the scope had significantly been reduced from what I had originally asked for. The first time I was made aware of these changes was the kickoff meeting on April 1st. I was then told that we could do a change order and bring the project back in line with both my original request and the solicitation that went out. Then, on April 25th, just days before the May 1st board meeting, I was told that we could not move forward with the change order due to legal concerns. At that point, I was confused. The project had been downsized, the staff was recommending unnecessary layers of contracts and contractors, and the process itself felt very convoluted. So my office submitted a public records request for internal communications related to the Gateway project. The documents received back were minimal. Here's what most people don't realize. During the blackout period in procurement, commissioners are not allowed to communicate with the vendors, the selection committee, or anyone involved with it in the purchasing department. That means we have no role in negotiating contracts. It's handled entirely by our staff under the direction of our county administrator. Our only job is to vote yes or no on what is brought in front of us. In the meantime, we learned that the design submitted by the selected contractor was not original. It appeared to be copied from a private website. I asked Wes, our county administrator, how he planned to hold the employee managing the project accountable for the reduced scope and what the repercussions were for the firm that submitted the non-original design work. I was told he was going to oversee the project going forward. On April 30th, a second solicitation went out, this one specifically for the design of the decorative arch. You can view all of this online. Then, as I was reviewing the agenda for the June 20th meeting, I saw that the county staff had negotiated a $1.1 million contract just for the pretty part, the design of the decorative arch itself. Even more confusion, on July 13th, our county administrator called my aide, Melanie Luna, and suggested we move forward with just the gantry and a message board and delay hiring a professional design firm for the decorative arch, even though the whole purpose of the second solicitation was to hire a design firm. Melanie and I were both left wondering, if the chosen firm isn't a true design firm, how did they win the bid in the first place? From the beginning of this project, I requested a design and build approach, one firm handling everything because it is more cost-effective and faster. Instead, we have ended up with a drawn-out process that has now ballooned into a $7.5 million project. So that is the background on the Gateway project. We are working diligently to get this in line where it needs to be. We are meeting with county staff. It's really hard to do when I don't get to negotiate that. I do still believe in the project because the entryway to Pensacola Beach looks like the entryway to our third world country. It's barricaded up. The tolling equipment in there no longer works. We found that out when someone hit the toll booth last year. And it says in all caps, please keep driving forward. So I don't think that's what we all want for the entry to our economic driver, but I also agree we need to be fiscally responsible and not spend this much money on an arch. So the question is, how do we marry those two up? I don't have an answer for that because I don't get to negotiate that, but we are working with county staff on that. Okay, there's the background, so happy to answer questions going forward.
So we do have a couple of speakers. Kevin Wade, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes again.
Kevin Wade, 413 Southeast Boblets. Dave, we've got a couple of pictures I want to put up. I not want that. The sorry, the entrance to the beach looking like a third world nation. It looks like many of the spots when you're driving through Eglin or many other
military base?
parts
Yes,
of
you're correct.
military bases where, yes, it does. You need to stop or get checked in one way or another. And you know, the gantry. I didn't learn that word until moments ago. But quick jump on the internet and you find that there are some of these gantries that are very sleek and unobtrusive, and some municipalities say, great, we're not going to occlude your view of the sky when you're driving to our place. And this is a toll booth. This is an automatic toll system, just like what we have right now, but it's very, trendy, I guess. I don't know if people have been paying attention to social media, but the options of the signs have been widely panned in thousands of posts on Facebook and threads and Twitter, and yeah, shifting the money around seems kind of funky. Yes, it did get noticed in some way, but glossed over quickly. There's a lot of like, keep it sleek, find a way to make it sleek. You already have the iconic sign that points the way to the beach. Leave that icon. It's a very nice icon. You got the beach ball, you got the dolphin on the tank. Thank you.
I do appreciate you bringing up the gantry sign as well. So if we move forward with just the gantry, we are at $5,370,000. So that is the amount that has came back from the contracts that we currently have out. So thank you for bringing that up so people had a visual. I appreciate that.
Our next public speaker, Melissa Pino.
Melissa Pino, 413 Southeast Boblets. Kevin and I have been fighting for beach stuff, starting with fighting to kill the roundabout out there, which the hoteliers should all be thanking us for now that they see the disaster that a poorly designed roundabout that was born of special interest could have interjected to the intersection of Via DeLuna and Fort Pickens. And I started off by fighting that roundabout by running traffic stats on just one entry of the Via de Luna from any given Saturday, and had to, Volkert had to admit that the stats were right and it was going to fail. But if the county wanted an emergency backup plan, they'd be happy to make one of those for a few more $100,000. We've been fighting bad projects for a long time, and we are here to be polite and respectful. That wasn't a shaming exercise on the changing rooms. We want them back. We advocated for that. This board voted for them. Gantries run about $75,000 on the simplest gantry that Kevin showed. With installation, one gantry arm, with not even two, could easily take care of one side of the beach. Might want to consider putting it up on the other side. Installation all in, 250,
I have the
maybe
numbers from the
300.
design firm, and then I
Can you stop
share the
my,
breakdown.
Chairman Bear, could you stop my time so I don't want to keep talking over her.
Yep, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I'd be happy interacting as long as you're okay with that.
Absolutely. So I do have the numbers for the gantry design and the cost that Jacobs provided. Do you want me to share those with you?
My answer would be that that's a single company that has been, they've been hired to do the entire project from design all the way through, and so they've coughed up some numbers on a gantry, but I'm talking about the actual material cost of a single arm gantry that goes over one side of the beach runs about $75K.
So the construction cost that they estimated for our wind loads and what we need here on the beach was $2 million for the construction cost. And unfortunately, and I did not know this until this project, we don't get to go with the lowest priced contractor when it's a professional service, such as engineering or electrical. We actually have to go for the most qualified. So it doesn't matter if they're twice the price as the second or third ranking person.
When it comes to the gantry, the only qualification is that it can hold up to the wind MIT standards from DOT, the state wind MIT standards, and that it will not come down in a tropical storm or hopefully a Cat 1 or 2 hurricane. And it's nice that we got that bid from them, but that's why you put a bid out with a more well-defined project. And respectfully, this thing has been jumping all around. Blaming county staff and administration for it is only going to go so far, but okay, you put out a narrative of why this thing has gotten so convoluted. It is convoluted to the point that it needs to completely go back to the drawing board, and then probably the very good answer is don't draw it. How about fixing parking out on the beach? And if you want to be a monumental commissioner, fix what the ones that came before you didn't. You don't have to answer to special interests as trying to force a campaign promise. That timeline that I put out, Commissioner Hofberger, you were a brand new commissioner on a governor appointeeship when the work stopped on that project, and then rammed through the cancellation of the contract on the changing rooms and sort of alluded to the money going to this project 2 days after you were elected. That's a lot for somebody.
I study and I do my homework. I will also say, as the mom of a 4-year-old, I feel like those changing stations are very unsafe, and it is not somewhere I would want to take my daughter in. It's just not safe. If you look at the statistics and you talk to law enforcement, what people refer to them as, I am not going to repeat on this dais.
One of the things that I absolutely adore about how well the city keeps up their facilities is that when you go into one of their facilities, they're lit, they have toilet paper, they have amenities, there are places to change in many of them. So again, I'm well aware that there can be an answer made for any of this, but it's funny because it's a deja vu all over again, because other than the hot lane that Commissioner Bender got and then fighting off the reiterative demands that the stupid roundabout go in, which thank God he did, nothing has changed out there. And there's never been any reason why it kill kill it. Kill it and fix parking and make graded parking and charge for it and make twice of what you could make on a toll. You can leave some free paid lots. Everybody knows that the SRIA building is completely blowing space with about 10 employees. You know all of the solutions because they've been the same.
Are you aware that we do have a solicitation out for a traffic management plan that is not a roundabout, with the idea of putting a parking structure in Casino Beach parking lot?
I was not, because I didn't know that the original congestion management plan that was passed under Commissioner Bender with, I believe, David Forte's assistance did that. Has that been canceled?
That was the roundabout.
No, the congestion management plan went in after the roundabout. That included the hot lane and some other suggestions. So, you know, you could make the lane on the way back. There are all kinds of things that could happen, but you need to listen to your constituents. You really be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for.
And many of the people who live out on the, and I agree, and just to give some background on the renderings that went out for people to vote on, the initial design that we all really liked that ended up being borrowed, the bones of that was good. The designs that went out for people to vote on was more, how do we dress that design? So we wanted the community feedback, and I was excited that we got almost 4,000 people to vote on that. And the idea was that we would take that feedback and provide it to the design firm so they could take the bones of the borrowed design and dress it with something that the community had put input in. I was asked several times why we didn't do a town hall, and it was exactly for that reason. We had over 4,000 people who voted and were heard. You don't get that at a town hall. I would have had to do at least 50 of them to make that happen.
It was a push poll with no ability to say no sign.
So there were people who did comment on that, and we did read through those. But several, or I would say the majority, and you can do a public records request, most of them just voted for one or the other.
Look, like I said, you're a formidable adversary in that you have very quick answers for everything, and I was expecting all of that. And I honestly think that you and I could go back and forth for 3 hours and you could provide spin and I could answer it, but that's not going to be helpful. I'm just asking that you really consider bringing the changing rooms back and just sending this thing to the trash heap and starting over at zero, because it's apparent to people that this thing happened way too quickly and what the provenance of it probably was. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Any other comments?
Just one.
Yes, ma'am.
Just because I think it was impossible for all of us not to be watching this on social media, if you're on there at all. And there were some really interesting designs that people were putting out there. Is there any way to do something where there could actually be a competition for the sign, like the city did at the entrance at the bottom of the, so that then it is the people's and instead of ours?
We were told that there were design restrictions on why we could or could not do that, and that with it being needed to be hurricane rated, that was a risky move, so we chose not to do that. There are options, and again, we're trying to figure out how to slim this down to downsize it and just move forward with the gantry for now, because believe it or not, the current toll plaza does cause traffic problems. If you sit out there and watch, you can see it. So it is a traffic issue. Additionally, $1.5 million of building this gantry is also to run fiber to the gantry, so we have consistent tolling and the ability to do that, and fiber to that red light, because when that red light goes offline, there's a guy in a room that controls it, and that happens more often than we would like for it to, so we would like to have the fiber ran. So it is more than just a toll plaza, but to answer your question, yes, right now we are looking at, is there a way to phase it, and is that the best way to move forward? So we're trying to figure all of that out.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone else? So I do have a couple questions and comments. David, can you put the presentation back up? Turn to the page it shows the cost. I think it's like page 10 maybe. That one, yep. So question, when we talked about, you mentioned, I think you said $7 million, but this is showing For roadways, 2 million, landscape lighting, 800 to 2 million, gateway, 3.5 million. So that's a total of between 6.3 and 7.5 million. And then in another column, we've got a $1.6 million estimated design costs. So that's over 9 million, possibly up over $9 million for this. And I understand you're saying you don't like this cost, you send it back. We're going to do a gantry to start and downside this project. I looked on your agenda for Friday's emergent or special meeting. It has a contract for Jacobs for $6 million with a clause in there that says, oh, but it might change up or down. So change orders always cost more. They
Right.
always cost extraordinarily more than was ever allocated or budgeted. This is a significant amount of money. And so this is just one issue I wanted to address. I think this is a significant amount of money. I don't think anybody that I've ever heard say, we don't need to get rid of those buildings that are there. They're in the way, they're bottlenecking traffic, they're ugly, looks like a war zone. I think, I don't want to conflate the two different issues. One is those things need to go, and I know
Correct.
there's certainly a cost, and I think everybody agrees to that. The other is what we're going to put up there and at what cost. From what I've seen on social media and the news, obviously, a lot of people don't like the design. I know you did the survey with the other three options. One of the things that really surprised me was to find out that this was Innisfree's design. And in all due respect, we have an Innisfree employee on this board, a senior member of that organization, and that was never even brought up at our meeting, that this was an Innisfree logo, or I guess intellectual property. I think it's a beautiful design. I don't know that that's what I want to see at the entrance, but that's my personal opinion. But I heard it from a lot of people, that they don't want to see something like that. Obviously, you can't use that. You put out 3 other designs. I've also seen a whole lot of other designs on social media that were proposed. Personally, I like better because they use some of the iconic symbols that we already have. We have the sailfish in Gulf Breeze. A lot of them some of them I saw use that same font. Some of them use the font that's on the beach ball that we have at the beach. And so concern is the design. Obviously, I understand there's engineering concerns about wind load and what somebody might design.
Right.
Obviously, somebody's talking about designing something artistic, and then the engineers take that artistic design and figure out how to engineer it if it'll work. So I think there's still an option for that. I mean, even the Blue Wahoos came out with a design, like a contest to see who could name them, and and their logo, et cetera. I think this is important for our community. This is going to be like a legacy sort of thing for
Absolutely.
Pensacola Beach, and I think everybody in the community, obviously you can't make everybody happy, but the majority of people should be in support of it, not opposed to it. And I think there's a lot
And
of
I'll own that, the messaging around the ones that were put out there for people to vote on, I did not do a good job messaging that we're looking for a theme. So I could have done a much better job about messaging the feedback that we were actually looking for. We just wanted feedback and a theme to provide to a professional design company to give us what you're looking at here, minus it not being an Innisfree logo, which in Innisfree's defense, it's actually PensacolaBeach.com and doesn't mention Innisfree on there at all. So just to clarify that. But nonetheless, a borrowed logo with a company we are still moving forward with.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing. Well, a couple of things, actually. As you pointed out, I do work for Innisfree Hotels. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development Asset Management. Prior to that, I ran the Operations Division for about 28 years. I was actually on the team that developed that logo, and I'm very proud of it. It was developed for PensacolaBeach.com, and it came quite as a surprise to us that the agency that was hired to create that logo that you're looking at on your screens is the logo for PensacolaBeach.com. I have to say it was also flattering that the agency picked up on something like that and wanted to replicate it. I'd be happy to license that to Escambia County for free. It's still a pretty classy logo, you can't argue that, and it's gotten us a lot of traction on the website. But that is quite frankly the genesis of it. There was no collusion whatsoever. And internally, when we saw this, we were pretty flattered. Yeah, that's an awesome entrance.
I prefer to say Budweiser.
No, we laughed internally.
We thought you might be part of that.
Is there room for beer logos on
Hey,
there?
good work's good work. You can't argue.
I agree. And the beach people actually really liked that one. So, and again, the idea behind the 3 that were released was give us a theme, let us give that to Jacobs, let them dress this arch with that theme and give us a professional rendering. But I cannot move forward with it at this price. We do need to do something. So the question is, what do we need to do? I have my weekly meeting with our county administrator on Wednesday, so nothing on the agenda is going to change until I have a meeting with him. He could have some great ideas. And then I know I have ideas, so we have to figure out what those look like.
So the board meeting agenda item is just going to move forward until you have your meeting tomorrow with the administrator, and maybe it'll change?
Yes, and I also want to have some discussion around this with the other county commissioners, because I know that they've received emails as well. I've probably received about 300, and I would say a third of those had other commissioners copied in on it, and rightfully so. It is a big decision. So I don't know if it'll be removed entirely or moved to a discussion item.
Just for kind of interest here is council members in a different municipal organization got messaged on this as well, asking us to be mindful about this. So it is a big deal, I think, to all of us. You know, I think all of us own the beach as our own, in our own way. This is our town, our beach, all that kind of stuff, and we do want it to be represented. And I mean, if there's any way, I'm looking at this one right here, if there's any way there could be a design that's somehow mitigated up on that, where there's a competition and it's the people's, I think that really should be considered. I do believe that, you know, we did it on here. I think we've done it in a number of places around. You said Wahoo, someone did. And I think that is a legitimate idea so that you get the buy-in you're looking for.
Charles?
Mr. Chairman, what is, of this total amount, what is the amount that's TDC or TDT money?
So the original money that we budgeted for was the $7 million, because it was between 6.3 and 7.5, so we went right in the middle with 7. We were expecting $1.5 million from the state, which we found out on Friday was not approved in their budget. So that is also a reason to divide it into 2 pieces. And then we asked TDT for $2.5 million, and that's what was approved.
That's what we voted on in April, right?
Correct.
And I
Yes,
voted
sir.
for that. You know, I guess I want the toll booths to go away. I know that I see people slow down there. When there's tons of traffic, you know, they're going to have to slow down there anyway. But it does slow people down. It's a pinch point there. And I think that definitely needs to go. I think there absolutely has to be a way to do SunPass. So you've got to have some type of gantry or whatever it is up there. But I get distracted by the sewage tanks. That's the stupidest place to put them, I think, and maybe the only place we could put them, but that's never going to change. You can paint them, they're still sewage tanks, and I think that's going to affect whatever we do there. I just would like to see something that's that's as best we can do, something that, it doesn't have to be very decorative to me, it just has to get the job done and be, aerodynamic. So when winds blow hard, that doesn't get blown down. That's my concern. I also have a lot of interest in changing rooms, as someone who had young kids, not now, but, I think those are important as well. And I hope these aren't mutually exclusive, that we can look at doing something like that. I know some people don't feel the same way about them, but I think when you look at what tourist dollars do, there's a number of things we spend them on, but I think making sure that tourists have a good experience at our beach, and I think changing rooms is one of those things. I don't think this particular sign is going to greatly improve a tourist's visit to Pensacola. I love going through the overhead gantry at Disney World. It's like I've arrived at Disney World, but this is not Disney World, okay? And what awaits me, I know, is sand, some place to shop, places to eat, but the sand is a big concern too, and if I have young kids, I want a place to maybe be able to change, So I think that's important as well. So I'm hopeful that we haven't completely given up on those. And I'm also really concerned about the cost. But again, I'm a city councilman, I live in the city, I don't live at the beach. I'm going to defer to what the beach residents think quite often, and what the commissioner who is, representing them. But I do think the cost has kind of gotten out of control, and the fact that we didn't get the state money too is unfortunate, but not unexpected, so, but I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to give a breakdown for just the functional part. So if we were just to tear down the toll plaza and put in a gantry, just so everyone is aware of the cost on that. To tear down the toll plaza, that demo is $70,000. The gantry design, which we've already paid for, is $600,000. The gantry construction is $2 million. The tolling equipment to go into the gantry itself is $1.2 million. And then the roadway fiber install, including running it to the red light, is $1.5 million.
And what was that total? I wasn't having it
That
in my
is
head.
$5,370,000.
Okay.
And that's with no frills, no thrills, just, we can probably paint it blue.
Okay. Well, any other comments? Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the update on all of that stuff and the dialogue. All right, next, because that's not an action item. So the next item is just closing remarks. We'll start with you, Tish. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's comment section's closed, sorry. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to the council members. I think we're headed in the right direction. I like to see the improvement and the decisions we're making. It's in a positive step. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's on this council.
Thank you. Commissioner?
This was my first budget meeting, and I actually really enjoyed it. So for everybody that's been on the board for a while, Jennifer, that led that, and Councilman Bear, I appreciate that. It was really informative for me, and I think it was really good prep work going into the county budget season.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yeah, I concur with the comments made. I think we really did a good job on who we were funding for the upcoming year, and looking forward to a good year.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you to all the support staff working behind the scenes. I know they were really crammed with a lot of pages, a lot of documents to process and get it ready for us, and appreciate that. It was a good meeting.
Thank you. Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo that for the staff. I know there's a lot going on with the budget staff. They're dealing with multiple issues, with 5 commissioners, with the clerk's office, with constituents, and there's so much, and I feel like you're understaffed. And, I'm going to share that with my commissioner, who's also a fellow council member, Hofberger, is that I really feel like you do a great job, but I think you need some support. This was a crazy agenda, not this one, the budget workshop, just with all the moving parts. And with what Councilmember Hofberger, it just sounds weird to call her that because, she's a commissioner and I know we're in the council, so. But with what she said about the portal, I think that's going to help. I think the biggest thing is that we need to have a consistent guideline as to what gets submitted, in what order, and what is the right thing to submit. Not the first page or 990, which one of y'all did out here, but and all the parts need to be assembled in a way that it's easy for the budget staff, primarily for them. I mean, we need to be able to review it too, but I think the budget staff is the one that has to be the group looks at it first, make sure it's accurate. And I think we owe it to you, to all the people that submit, to have a process that's easy to understand and easy to comply with. So, I want to thank all those who came out. I don't think most of them are here anymore, but that came out to answer questions. Unfortunately, some of them didn't show up, but I think it's important. Whenever I apply for funds through my organization, I show up because just in case there's a question. There may not be any questions, but I'll have questions. I mean, it just happens. And I appreciate my fellow council members for listening to me because I talked a lot today. But I really dug in, and I just feel like we need to understand and we need to let people know that it's important what they submit to us. It's not something we just gloss over, and that the information they submit to us is important to us making our decision and recommending to the county commission so that the county commission understands we've also reviewed it. So I think there's multiple steps in this process, definitely room for improvement, but I think our staff, the budget staff here, and the council members are doing the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Breyer?
Obviously, you have to listen to the council members. We always have something to say. But I want to say, thanks for that 1,513 pages, plus an extra email today. And so it was intense, and it is, that order would be fantastic. But I'm going to just go back, because when I'm reading this last thing here, this page, right? And I read this afterwards, and I'm sorry that I'm going back on this, but I want to say it. Is I looked up in the state, I looked up definitions of convention center, stadium, arena, museum, aquarium, auditorium, coliseum. And I am sorry to say, but I don't believe NEP on 9 Mile Road for the $25 million fits anywhere in any one of those definitions. It is not an arena by their definition. It is not a stadium. It's not a convention center. It doesn't meet a single condition, and I don't know how that works when we have appropriated $25 million to something that does not meet the state standard of where money can be appropriated. And I have serious concerns. I had concerns on another notion of that, and I find it a little humorous that this past week there was an entire PFAS presentation locally on the news because we are under lawsuits because these things are dangerous, and they are very dangerous for people. So I do have concerns about that. I hope on Friday when the commission looks at this, they think twice. It's a lot of money for a short period of time on something that I actually, if you go and read all these definitions, absolutely does not fit. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Jason?
I would like to thank and extend my appreciation to both the speakers. I know it takes a lot of courage to come up to the dais and share your passion and your thoughts to protect your community and your quality of life in your community. I also want to extend my appreciation to my fellow council members for your courage on a budget session like this. There were some hard decisions made. I think they were, in my opinion, right for the community and the economy in which we operate. I'm speaking last, so I'm going to say I do, or second to last, I do have a strong opinion about the ball fields. I believe that they're a tremendous demand generator. I think that there's a segment of sports tourism that we've not yet tapped that could be an overwhelming success for the community. And I'm anxious to see it happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, for both of these meetings today. I think these were great discussions. I think we did great work. So thank you very much. Thank you to the folks in the audience for enduring, the public speakers and the applicants for the requests, and the folks doing all the work. So thank you, and to staff doing a yeoman's work. Thank you, Philip, for stepping up and stepping in and taking over this role and getting these documents available. And Stefan, just so you know, the 3% administrative fee doesn't all have to go to the clerk's office. It goes for administration. And if your costs for this project require some of the funding, then the county can retain up to, but not to exceed, 3% of the tourist development tax for administration of the tourist development tax program.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that.
Thank you. He walked all the way up for that. And one other comment, there is an Attorney General opinion specifically about baseball fields and using tourist development tax that was presented by, I think, Kristen Huell to the County Commission's meeting previously. So I think it does fit under the Attorney General's opinion under the stadiums, for whatever that's worth. I do too think it's going to drive some tourism, but regardless of whether it can or cannot drive tourism, it's whether it's eligible for the funding. I agree.
I'm a sports mom.
Yeah.
I mean, all my kids play sports all the way through. That's not a question at all. I would have hesitation if they were paying from a young age on those materials. And if there's something that just disintegrate and fall apart in under 10 years, $25 million in under 10 years is just, to me, not feasible. Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you. All right, I have no other comments. We have no other business. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.